Good evening. Welcome to our February 3rd Cabarrus County Board of Education work session. We're sitting up here today because we have a public hearing on the overcrowding and redistricting at Cox Mill Elementary in about an hour. So we'd like to try to get through our normal agenda prior to that. We'll take a break prior to the public hearing. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I've got call to order, so we're in session. Item 2.01 is adopting the agenda.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I would like to make a motion that we amend the agenda by adding a 5.04 for redistricting discussion after the public hearing.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to, let me see what 5.01. I'd like to, I guess, wait and see. Let's hear from the public first on their comments and then decide if we want to amend it depending on how long it takes, or if we need to do another night, as opposed to committing to the agenda right now.
As long as y'all are good for time, I would like to have the discussion, and I don't want to hear that
You said
we
5.
didn't do it in a timely manner. I'm good with that.
She's,
Either way.
the motion is 5.04, adding a discussion after the public comment period.
Yeah, I guess I'd rather wait, but I mean, if everybody else wants to do it for sure tonight, as opposed to deciding how long we go, because we could be at 10 o'clock to start that.
Well, we'll have a discussion on how long we want the public comment period to be, so that's
Okay.
kind of in our ballpark. All right, any further discussion? Okay, all in favor of the motion of adding the agenda to 5.04, say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed?
I'm
One,
going to say I'm opposed
two.
just because I'd rather wait and see where we
That's
go
fine.
tonight. So,
So what are we, 4 to 2? 4 to 2.
it needs to be 5 to.
Who's missing? 5 to 2. All right, from there, we will move on with the new agenda item. So our next section is reports, and we have 3.01, which is Risk Management Department Overview, and we have Mr. Dan Collins. Welcome. And if you come to the podium and turn on your mic.
Good evening. So I'd just like to take a brief moment to introduce Dan. So as you remember, in September we did a department spotlight. We started those department spotlights. We did in September we did transportation with Art Whitaker, and then in November once again we did Stephanie Allman. So we have another member of the auxiliary services team, and that's Dan Collins. Dan's been with us since about June, and his the risk management has really been added to and kind of, I won't say newly created, but definitely edited in terms of the position when it started in June. So Dan is going to kind of bring you an overview of what he's doing and then what he's been working on. So with that, Dan?
Okay, do you want to go through your presentation and then ask questions, or you want us to stop you as we go along?
Whichever works for the board. Maybe for brevity tonight, because I do know you have a lot on the agenda, it may be beneficial to wait till the end.
Okay, we'll let you
Okay.
do your presentation.
Okay. The objective of the Risk Management Department is to plan and manage and implement the Cabarrus County Schools Risk Management, Loss Prevention, and Workplace Safety Program. Our goal is to minimize exposure to loss or damage to CCS assets and provide a safe environment for students, staff, and visitors. In order to accomplish this goal, I work with other Cabarrus County school departments and external partners to ensure the most effective use of resources and to maintain compliance with laws, policies, regulations, and procedures. Mr. Schultz already said I report to him in the Auxiliary Services Department. This presentation tonight is going to highlight the benefits of a risk management program and provide a brief overview of the risk management process. We'll identify the importance of our risk management team and provide an example of how our team ensures we are in compliance with regulations and how risk management works with our external coverage partners to protect the district from risk, exposures that could lead to financial loss. I will close with some proactive risk control projects that our team is currently working on. Risk management is critical in providing a safe and secure learning environment for students, staff, and the general public. It's essential for stewardship of taxpayer dollars by reducing losses and claims against the district and comply with regulatory agencies. Risk management works to identify and analyze exposures and take actions to avoid, prevent, reduce, retain, or transfer that risk. Some of the general benefits of a risk management program is to reduce our liability by implementing measures to control and fund losses, proactive risk control to lower the number and the cost of accidents. Some financial benefits is to assist the district to stay within budget and to integrate the district's workplace safety and loss control plans. The risk management process is a system of treating risk that includes identification and analysis of exposures, selection of appropriate risk management techniques to handle exposures, implementation of those techniques, and then monitoring the results. The risk management process is continuing and dynamic as students, employees, parents, volunteers, contractors, equipment, facilities, services, programs, and laws change. My focus as a risk manager is always on risk identification. We have to identify the risk before we can control it, and then working on ways to reduce those losses, and then administrating the program. Cabarrus County School Risk Management Team has a vital role in every step of the risk management process. Our risk management team is a mechanism for effectively implementing and monitoring the risk management program. I cannot perform every risk management function alone. The risk management department needs information and expertise, not only from individuals within the district, but also from individuals outside the district. Some team members provide services that may not be available internally, while others use their expertise to contribute to the success of our risk management program. Some examples on the slide here is our internal partners and our external partners. I work real closely with auxiliary services, curriculum and instruction, the finance department, human resources, student safety and well-being, and also our schools. Some of our external partners are the Department of Public Instruction, the School Board Trust, Department of Labor, some local regulatory agencies, also some risk management and safety professional organizations. Regulatory compliance. Risk management maintains ongoing compliance review to ensure that the district adheres to state and local statutes and federal regulations. Examples of statutory compliance issues include local and city code, enforcement, and state and federal mandates imposed by either statute or regulation. An example of how the risk management team works in the district is the chemical hygiene plan. Chemical hygiene plan is a written program that states the policies, procedures, and responsibilities that serve to protect employees from health hazards associated with hazardous chemicals in our school labs. A chemical hygiene plan is a best practice, but it's also a regulatory compliance. It's regulated by OSHA, the Department of Labor. Also, we have a board policy that addresses chemicals in the school labs, and a North Carolina Administrative Code. An example of how our internal risk management team worked is we formed a chemical hygiene committee. It included the risk management department, curriculum and instruction, high school and middle school staff. We worked together to create our chemical hygiene plan to meet the requirements of the standard and adapted the plan to our district. The committee will review the plan annually and modify as needed. The Cabarrus County School Chemical Hygiene Plan will ensure that we're in compliance with regulations and provides consistent safety guidance for our schools. We also have some external coverage partners. We partner with North Carolina Department of Public Instruction and the North Carolina School Board Trust, and we have some insurance carriers for some other insurance products. Some initiatives that the Risk Management Department is working on is we're in the process of working on an employee workplace safety manual and introducing loss control committees in our departments. We've instituted a 10-hour general industry safety training for our facilities department. We've started with the supervisors. We've also have our hazardous communication on safety data sheets online as opposed to in binders, and we're working on a couple online student injury report and a workplace hazard identification opportunity for the district. That's a real quick overview of my department and what I do. I'm extremely happy to be here. I've been in this business for a long time. This is a great place to work. I'm very proud of my risk management team, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to give a quick overview of my department.
Thank you for that presentation. We'll ask our board members if they have any questions of you. I'll start on my right-hand side here. And you're Ms. Grimsley.
I have no questions. I would just like to say welcome, and we are
Thank
glad
you.
that you're here. That's
Thank
a
you.
very important issue that we have to deal with, so thank you for all that you do.
Ms. Carpenter.
Same here, and we're glad to have you aboard and glad to be working with you.
Thank you.
Mr. Shoemaker.
I'll just I have a few questions. We're just a few comments, questions. The chemical hygiene plan,
Yes, sir.
that includes your MDS
SDSs, yes, sir.
or SDS. And then do y'all do tier 2 reporting to the state on hazardous materials? Usually a certain volume or like 10,000 pounds.
At this point, I'm not sure that we have the volume to make that report, but
Okay,
I will,
that's good.
I will check that, sir, and get back with you.
And then when you said your loss prevention committee, is that a new name?
It's-
Is it kind of like our safety committee and now it's kind of
It is,
changed?
and
since-
what I try to do, I've learned in the past few years, when you say safety, people start to think you're talking about student safety, which is very important. I try to use loss control for a safety committee.
Yeah, because Ms. Carpenter goes to all of them, don't
yeah,
you?
she
And I
does.
just want to make sure that.
And based
we
on my experience, having a very robust safety committee throughout the district is very beneficial. It gets buy-in from our employees, and it gives us an opportunity to see what's going on in the district. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Ms. Furtenbaugh.
And no comments, but I'll just ditto the other ladies' comments. I'm glad we have a professional risk manager in place now, so thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Harrison.
And again, welcome. Our safety committee is second to none, and they do a marvelous job, and they've got a great deal of talent and resources on there that you can rely on. And I hope you'll be a frequent member of the policy committee as well, because it sounds as though policy very much is in your ballpark
I am
there.
part of that committee now, sir.
Great. Good to see you, and we'll talk to you frequently, I hope.
Okay.
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you.
Ms. Blackwell.
Just say thank you and welcome.
Thank you.
We appreciate having your experience on board. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
So our next item on the agenda is 3.02, Career and Technical Education Month. Mr. Rusty Parker, welcome.
Good evening. February is always the month when we recognize CTE programs around the nation. The National Association of Career and Technical Education has set aside February as the time to recognize programs that have been exceptional. And I think Cabarrus County is exceptional, so I'm glad to be on the agenda this evening. What I want to do first, and I will not get to be here at next Monday night's recognitions, but I did want to recognize Zach Trivett to start off our presentation this evening. Those of who have met Zach Trivett, you know he's a fantastic teacher. I'm thrilled he's in my department, but a couple of months ago, he was actually selected as, make sure I get this right, the North Carolina ITEEA Middle School Teacher Excellence Award. I had to go back and learn what ITEEA is, and it stands for International Technology and Engineering Educators Association. So Zach's going to be going to Baltimore, Maryland in March, and he represents North Carolina. So if you see Zach, please tell him congratulations. He'll be here next Monday for recognitions. CTE, a couple of years ago, 2 years ago, probably 3 years ago, I had my department step back and really take a look at what our vision and mission is for our department. And we went through several activities to try to define what our vision and our mission would be. And everything that we did kept coming back to students, and we wanted it to be student-focused. So our vision is students prepared to pursue their direction and purpose. And also the mission is student-focused. Our goal every day is to inspire students, also to help them create their future. But also our goal for career and technical education is to help build the greater Cabarrus community. So we wanted our mission to also include building community, and that is our mission. To tell you a little bit about career and technical education, we are made up of 4 separate program areas. The first one is agriculture education. And if you are taking a course in any of the pathways in agriculture education, you probably are taking a class in animal science or horticulture. A lot of kids like the animal science program because they think they get to pet horses all day long. So it's horses, and a large animal is horses and goats and cows. But the small animal pathway is actually rabbits and guinea pigs, and so they like that a lot too. So we have a lot of kids take that program. And then horticulture has become a huge program area for us because if you've been to any of our plant sales at our the high schools, usually they're in the spring. Please attend any of them. All the ag programs have one. The second program area is the business and finance and marketing program. This year, DPI actually consolidated the business program and the marketing program into one program area. So if you're taking a pathway or some courses within the pathways in this area, you're probably taking an accounting course or a business management course, courses that are entrepreneurship focused, or how to create a business plan. Those are the courses that are in our business program area. The next pathway is or the program area is actually career development, and career development is a path or a program that we have at the middle school. So if you go to our middle schools and see some of our 6th grade classes, they're taking courses called Exploring Career Decisions, and really those programs at the middle school are to help kids discover who they are. So they're taking career assessments or career interest inventories or a learning styles inventory to find out what career they would really like to choose. So that's the program that's at middle school, is career development. The next one, a lot of kids like this one too because DPI consolidated several of our computer programs, pathways, and they created a new program area called Computer Skills and Information Technology. So if a student was taking classes there, they'd be taking graphic design, they'd be taking some courses in computer programming, Python 1 and 2, those types of classes are part of that pathway. The next one is Family Consumer Science. The pathways in Family Consumer Science are apparel or apparel design, interior design, and then the foods program. We have a really strong foods program. Kids in those areas actually take courses and learn about nutrition. So it's not just how to cook, it's also why you're cooking, what you're cooking. So a lot of kids like those courses. They do real well. The next one is a real popular one called Health Sciences. It's an understatement to say that we have successful health sciences programs in our school district. Every high school has at least one health sciences teacher. Most are 2 teacher programs. And courses in those areas include our Project Lead the Way courses at the academy, and then also biomedical technology. And the last one is Trades, Technology, and Engineering. And again, DPI consolidated some program areas this year because it used to be Trades and Industrial Education, and then Technology was separate. Now it's all one program area. So students that take courses in these pathways, they would be taking courses in automotive or drafting or the new electrical trades program that we're going to have, construction, masonry, those programs. But also our STEM program is in this area. So if kids are taking robotics or intro to engineering, those courses are in this pathway. And that is all 7 program areas. CTE by the numbers. This year we have over 13,000 students enrolled. This is an unduplicated number, so this is all the kids taking at least one CTE program. Middle school is at 5,600 kids and then almost 7,500 for high school. And that is a 4.5% increase over the past school year. So a lot more kids taking CTE. This slide is actually the duplicated enrollment, and this is actual seat count. So if you're looking at the number of kids that are actually bodies in the seats, it's the 13,000 number that was the one kid, and then 8,400 students are taking one or more CTE classes. So we have over 21,000 students enrolled. The bottom little text box at the bottom is my favorite data point of the day, because of all the students that are allowed to take CTE courses at high school and middle school, 69% of the high school and middle school students are enrolled in Career and Tech Ed. So we have a huge number of students enrolled. We're proud of that number. Career and technical education is made up of a pathway structure, and what I did was I put the automotive pathway up here so you can kind of see how it's structured. Most freshmen come in and take something like Intro to Automotive. If they're in a business program, they'll take Principles of Business, and then they start building their pathway. So Automotive 1 is the sophomore course, Automotive 2 is a junior course, and usually seniors take Automotive 3, but that's how they're structured. And students who finish that pathway are called CTE concentrators. Our academies. Our academies are actually structured around themes that are based from the Economic Development Commission's targeted industry list. So if you look at the EDC and how their industries are targeted, you'll see all of the themes that we have with our academies. The one at J.M. Robinson is focused on advanced manufacturing. I know a lot of you have been out there to visit that program. If you go in the advanced manufacturing classroom, you'll see robotics, and you'll see a lot of automation in that room. Our robotics program is also part of that academy. At Cox Mill, we have the IT Academy. It's the first academy that was actually capped out at 75. Now we have a couple other academies that are capped out with their enrollment, but a lot of kids are going into IT, and those program areas there are computer graphics and then also the computer programming piece as part of that. Going across to the right, Concord High School is our Public Safety Academy, and I'm really proud of the numbers this year. I think over 60 kids have applied to be in that academy, so their numbers are increasing. But if you're enrolled in any of the pathways at that academy, that's the Fire Academy, the Fire Pathways there, Firefighter Technology, also Law and Justice, which is the police piece, and then also EMT is part of that academy. Hickory Ridge's little logos on the bottom left there, and they are the Hospitality Academy. So hospitality is a pretty big industry in Cabarrus County. So we want to make sure that we have an academy that's focused on that, so that we're feeding students into that pathway. And if kids are taking actually a program in there, in that pathway, if they're taking courses there, then they're most likely taking sports and entertainment marketing or something to do with foods and nutrition. The last one is the Health Sciences Academy. It is also capped out. I'm really proud of this academy. Their numbers have skyrocketed. So they capped out at full 75, and they have more than that as far as applied. But that is the program or the school where we have our Project Lead the Way program. And Project Lead the Way is a really strenuous, really rigorous program area for health sciences where they teach human body systems. And a lot of the health sciences focused. I think one time I presented to the board, I got to show blood splatter. I didn't want to do that today. But that's one of the courses that they actually take, and it's a module in their class. This slide is one that I really want to talk about for a second, because I'm really proud of two academies that are going to be one's changing a theme in the fall, and one is brand new. I met with the advisory board for Mount Pleasant's Academy and talked to them about how do we increase numbers in the academy, and are we going the right direction. And a lot of the business leaders in that advisory board suggested that we look at a different theme, and the theme being architecture and construction, because a lot of businesses are looking for electrical trades employees, and they're looking for students that can come out with a business background but also know about electrical trades. So the new pathway for Mount Pleasant starting in the fall will be an electrical trades pathway, masonry pathway, but also a business and entrepreneurship pathway. So students that come through the academy will take all of that, so that when they come out, they will be set and ready to go either own their own business or act as a contractor for an electrical trades company. The other one is the Aviation Academy. Y'all have heard we're opening an Aviation Academy at West Cabarrus High School. Mr. Walter's smiling. We're very excited that we were approved for our curriculum. The curriculum that we're using is from the Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association, AOPA, and we actually had to apply for it. Although it is free, we still had to apply. So we actually found out December 17th, 18th, somewhere around that time, that we were approved for the curriculum. So we have the curriculum ready to go. We also have hired a teacher, and we have about 75% of our advisory board built, which we're hoping to meet in February, later this month. So the Academy of Aviation Aerospace is off the ground, so I'll say that officially. One of the things about CTE that we're really proud of, and I'll skim through some of this because some of you know this already, we have a Career Connections Day every April. Last year I think it was March, but this year it's April 7th. But that is one of the main events that we host as far as business partnerships. Last year had a very successful event where about 50 companies came to the Cabarrus Arena, and we had students from 11th and 12th grade come, and several students actually received job offers that day. They had their resume and they could meet with the company, and several were hired that day. So we're doing it again on April the 7th, and all of you are invited to attend. We also have several advisory boards, as I've already talked about. Some of the companies that help us with our internships is J.K. Bowen this year, construction. They took on several of our students for internships in the construction industry. And also Code Ninjas is a really big partner in the IT field, so they take a lot of our interns with IT. We have several companies that have helped with our simulated work environment. If you've been to J.M. Robinson, we have an event there called the Fab Lab. Corning is a big partner, Decision Path HR is a big partner, and also S&D Coffee and Tea. They come out and do mock interviews for us. And this year, this second semester, actually starting right now, we have 4 students who are going to be participating in Wayne Brothers Pre-Apprenticeship Program. So we're starting that this semester, so there's 4 students there. These are just some of the companies that we partner with. Project Lead the Way, ProStart, National Academy Foundation is a big partner with us. Leading to Change does professional development, and also Constructive Learning Design does professional development. I want to end with a quote. We actually last year asked students that had attended the Career Connections Day for several quotes, like what did you think of the day? What do you think of your CTE program, the classes that you're taking? And we really wanted to get some feedback from students. And I love this one, the way it ended. Tessa Gunner is actually a student in the Public Safety Academy at Concord. And she said, I loved my experience in these classes, and she's in law and justice. And even if I don't choose a job in this field, I've learned so many useful things that I will take with me for the rest of my life. Our tagline in CTE is moving futures forward. That's our goal in CTE, is to help every child move their future forward. And I thought her quote was perfect with that, because we actually tried our best to help her do that. And to hear her say that was a big thrill for all of us. I will say, end on this, happy CTE Month. Thank you for all that you do for CTE. We appreciate it very much.
Thank you for that presentation. I think it's exciting things that are happening, and I've heard students that get jobs right out of high school because of our programs.
Thank you. We're
Which is
excited about
outstanding.
that.
We'll have some questions from our board members. We'll start with Ms. Blackwell.
So I don't have any questions, but I just want to say that I am constantly amazed at what we are able to offer in Cabarrus County for career and technical. My son is part of that at Mount Pleasant High School. He also had Mr. Trivet and absolutely loved him. So I'm just so grateful that my kids are able to take part in such an amazing program that we have here in Cabarrus County. So thank you.
Appreciate that.
Mr. Harrison?
Y'all add a great deal to the quality of it, the education of Cabarrus County, a tremendous addition and enhancement to the regular instruction.
Thank you.
Someday, if you could pull together data on the teachers and the instructional staff that are carrying out all the CTE stuff, because it's not the traditional learning academic thing so much as it's obviously technical in nature, but I'd be interested in knowing kind of the profiles of the skill sets and what the teachers deliver to the students all the time. It must be very difficult to find all those skill sets to deliver the quality
It can be a challenge,
that
yes,
you're
sir.
providing to us. But again, thank you all very, very much.
Thank you.
Ms. Furtenbaugh?
My question is more from the technology side, because that's what I know. I know some of our students will take the Microsoft certifications, the ground floor ones.
Yeah.
Is that in the trades, technology, and engineering, or is that in the IT, computer skills and information technology? Where are they learning about more of the infrastructure part?
It's shifted a little bit. It is actually in the IT program area. The state's actually shifted some of our pathways around a little bit, and so they try to consolidate, move some things, and now all of the computer-related courses are in that IT pathway. So what we've done now is looked at how can we also bring in the Adobe Academy. Right now it's at Mount Pleasant and Cox Mill, but we've looked at also how can we expand that out so that more students can learn the graphic side of what they're doing. So we're trying to expand the IT program and not be so focused on Microsoft products. So we actually will have an Adobe Academy offering at Northwest, we'll have it at Central, we'll have it at several schools now, so that students can learn more of the graphic side of it.
But they're still learning the server functionality and dealing with servers and upgrading them and whatever else might be in the coursework.
Yeah, we offer a networking program. Actually, that's more along the lines of what the Academy at Cox Mill does with their programming side of the house. I know they break apart computers and they tear them apart, put them back together, and they look at that type of it.
Okay.
I don't know if they delve so much actually in network administration. We don't have a specific course in network administration that's offered there, but that's the area where they actually they get into that program there.
And what about cybersecurity? That's probably at the Early College of Technology. I'm sure they're taking it there, but from the CTE standpoint.
It is. We're kind of in a change with that program. Last year we offered it through Roy and Cabarrus Community College at Cox Mill, and a teacher actually came to the campus and taught it from RCCC. But now the Department of Public Instruction, through our CTE staff, they're creating a cybersecurity course, and there is now a pathway in cybersecurity. Right now, it's being piloted at a few districts around the state, but after this year, it'll be open for districts to offer that as a state course, not through a community college.
It's just there's a huge market right now
It is very
for
much so.
professionals in that area.
We've wanted to bring that in as a pathway at Cox Mill with the IT Academy, and that's now that the state is actually providing a course, we can move that direction
Okay,
and look at that.
very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Shoemaker?
Mr. Parker, it's great to hear that Mount Pleasant's going to have something I think that the students out there will really embrace even more than what they had before with the construction and all, because it seems to be more of their tenor of the way they're wired. But in your manufacturing academy, have you been able to secure a number of jobs out of that? Has it seen a lot of success at that level? Or are most of your graduates out of that academy heading off to four-year or advanced institutions?
Good question. Actually, last year was the first graduating class from that academy. So right now we're to the point of where students can actually sit for the CPT certification. And so that's the certification that goes with advanced manufacturing. Rowan Cabarrus Community Colleges, they offer it. But this is the first year that we've been able to offer it in our school district. So we actually have 4 students that are set to do that. And then hopefully they can take that with them into a job. Right now, most of our students, we've had several that have gone on to 4-year universities. I don't have an actual data point to bring you. I could probably find that. But a lot of the students that come out of there, engineering is their focus. So I know we've had some kids that have interested in UNC Charlotte's program and also NC State's program. So I could probably get that number for you, but I don't have it right here with me.
So is your involvement with, do y'all as a UCTE group get involved with the VEX program, or is that kind of a sideline for you, or is that kind of self-managed in a different way?
It's kind of a parallel program in our district because I know we have the VEX Robotics grant that we work with, and it was already mentioned, I think, earlier. We've talked a little bit about that already. But our curriculum is focused on VEX. So what I do is support the curriculum side of the house with what our robotics teachers need and help them with the curriculum side. So it'll look a little different from a club. Like the after-school clubs that they do for VEX, it looks a little different. So there's the VEX club side of the house, and then I'm managing the curriculum side of the house.
And is that curriculum in all middle and high schools, or is it only this specific
It's selective.
ones?
It's not in all of them.
Okay.
Yeah, and actually we're trying to realign some of that. So the STEM program at Northwest would have hopefully a tech ed teacher at the middle school to kind of feed that, and that's kind of what we're working to do right now is clean up those pathways.
Okay.
But it's not offered everywhere, but it's offered at the majority of the STEM or engineering focused programs.
So Northwest, Central,
Yeah,
and then maybe the
Yes, sir.
Manufacturing Academy
correct.
would be the 3 possible.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Ms.
And thank you
Carpenter?
for all you do.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
Ms. Carpenter?
Again, I want to thank you for what you do. I have to say, everywhere I go, I praise our academies and I tell everybody about them. I am so pleased with them. And every time we add one, again, I'm telling everybody about them. Anybody that'll listen. But I am. I'm very pleased with them. And 2, at the new, I know we're going to have the aviation, but aren't we doing something else with, I mean, it's not an academy, but aren't we doing something else with manufacturing or something at West Cabarrus? I mean, with logistics or something?
Yes.
I mean, I don't know if it'll be an academy, but we're doing something.
You're correct.
Something else over there, are we not?
We are. One of the things that I wanted to bring to the district too was a logistics program or a pathway. Logistics is a really big industry in Cabarrus County. If you go to the EDC data, there's jobs all over the place with logistics. I mean, we have an Amazon facility, we have Walmart distribution center, FedEx. I mean, we got all of those sitting here, but we never had a pathway that actually fed jobs into that. So, and just so you know, my background is UPS, so I think logistics. That was what I did before education. So I wanted to bring something like that to Cabarrus County Schools. So if you go into the CTE hallway in West Cabarrus, the very first classroom is a logistics classroom. And I've been working with a company called MHI, which is the Manufacturing Materials Handling Institute or industry. And they actually provide equipment, curriculum with logistics. And so I've already met with them about how can we fill up that classroom and put racks in there. And there'll be a hopefully someday there'll be a forklift in there, and I heard the CTE director has to drive it, so I'll be the first one to get it.
Well, I knew when we toured, they mentioned that, and so I was wondering if that was going to be another different type of academy, but they mentioned, because they told us about the aviation, which I thought, man, that's fantastic that we're going to be able to offer that to our students, and the CTE classes just are wonderful. And make sure you let us know about that date out at the arena, because I attended that last year, and the enthusiasm I saw in those students' faces when they were going from each of those employers was just tremendous.
Oh, yeah.
And so I definitely want to put that on my calendar,
Make sure you get
because
that.
it was a tremendous event. And I mean, like I say, what I saw those students when I saw them going from employer to employer, and it was just a great event.
Thank you for saying that.
And to see the professionalism those students had, I mean, when they were going, it was just great. So do make sure that you get it on our
I'll
calendar.
make sure you hear about it.
And thank you for all you do for our students.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ms. Grimsley?
So April's going to be a busy month for CTE.
It will
We have
be busy.
pre-skills masonry competition
We
on
do.
April the 10th.
Yes.
So of course I'll speak to the construction side because that's what I know.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about the electrical program at Mount Pleasant. That's a nice addition to our construction as far as carpentry and masonry. Give me some idea. Plumbing and mechanical are huge right now. We're having a lot of trouble
Right.
getting plumbers and mechanical people. What would be the viability of trying to add one of those programs?
We've talked with, I have some really strong advisory boards, and you know that already, being on home builders. But the business advisory council that I have, they mentioned electrical trades first. I mean, that was the first thing that popped up. But we were talking about how to build our trades programs. That was the first one. But also, the more we talked about it was, how do I put plumbing into a school, or how do I put HVAC in a school? And really, it's a facilities issue, trying to figure out where to put it. We lucked out at Mount Pleasant because they have a classroom. So we kind of knew where to put an electrical trades program. It kind of fell into place to where to put it. But the others, we kind of struggled with, where do we put that? Because it's not an inexpensive program, so we really have to think about a funding piece. But also, where would it go? The building is the issue. So my natural thought would be somewhere like Central, and because they have a strong trades program, but so does Mount Pleasant. So, but it really is going to take some planning about how that's going to look down the road. So
I'd like to see that well-rounded, complete
Oh, yeah, me
circle
too.
met. That would
Me
be
too.
great. And I do get it that the facilities would be an issue. What about welding? I know we have, the shortages are mainly what we've learned in the last couple of months is
Mm-hmm.
plumbing, mechanical, and welding. Where do you stand on your welding?
Good question. I've met with the CT director at Kannapolis City Schools, Daryl Adams. He and I talk a lot, and they actually added welding to their program over, but it's through Rowan Cabarrus Community College. So we've been trying to think about what would that look like for us, because again, we don't have a facility, we don't have a place. So do we let students go to their North Campus and take it, or where do they go? So there's a lot of logistics to make it a reality, but it's definitely a discussion item that we'd like to talk about, how to make welding an option.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you very much.
Again, thank you for the presentation, and
Yes, sir.
please express to your team our appreciation for all that they do.
Thank you very much.
Before we move on to our consent items, I'd like to recognize our SROs that are out here today providing some safety for us. We have Officer Wendy Holmes from A.T. Allen Elementary School and Officer Keith Drake from Bethel. I appreciate you all coming out tonight. Thank you for what you're doing. I guess Officer Drake is in the hallway? Okay. All right, board members, we will move on to our consent item, agenda item 4.01, which is budget amendments, and we have Ms. Kelly Klutz.
Thank you. We finally have budget amendments now that it's February. So we'll go to the first one, the state budget amendment. Thank you, Dave. What you'll find here on the state is the biggest change or amendment is the increase for our bonuses. There's some principal bonuses, 4th and 5th grade reading bonuses, 4th to 8th grade math, APIB, and CTE bonuses. 3rd grade is not in that number. There was a delay at the state level, and those should be coming soon. Okay. Questions about state amendments?
So for CTE, that's really a federal program, but this bonuses, or they're still eligible for state bonuses?
State paid bonuses.
Okay.
They are. Correct. The next one are federal budget amendments. Minor adjustments there, just an adjustment from actual to planning, and then a reclass on our Title I funds. Okay, we'll move on to our capital. This is an adjustment so that when the state pays and does our replacement buses, they put us on a lease and they send the money down and we book it and we pay the vendor for that. So it's just kind of a, they send it to us and we take care of it. It's just an allotment. It's a pass-through. Okay. And finally, we have the Jimmy Johnson grant that went to Cox Mill Elementary School for $32,000. Where they will be creating a critical thinking lab for their school. Okay. Any questions?
You want to put this on consent?
Consent.
Okay, consent, thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is 4.02, policy revisions for approval on the first reading.
Good evening, board members.
Reimer, Ms. Burns.
Up for first read for February, policy 4240-7312, child abuse and related threats to child safety. This is a strongly recommended PLS update. The update incorporates new state mandated reporting and training related to child victimization. The policy title is revised. The introductory paragraphs are revised to add new reporting requirements. Adds a new section A to address the new duty to report certain crimes against children. The duty to report in section A is extended to employees, contractors, and volunteers. Adds a new section F to require child sex abuse and sex trafficking training program to be provided to designated school personnel, and updates legal references. Policy 6420,
Let her go through them and I will go through them. Oh.
whatever you guys like. Policy 6420, contracts with the board, clarifies that the contracting authority limits to section A apply to the contracts for materials, equipment, or services, and that contracts shall not be divided to avoid board approval. Policy 7240, drug-free and alcohol-free workplace. This is a required and recommended PLS update. Modifies the description of prohibited behaviors to be consistent with state law terminology, addresses CBD and THC containing substances, and adds impairment by mood-altering substances to the list of prohibited behaviors. Clarifies the meaning of non-scheduled drugs or substances and only scheduled controlled drugs and substances. Policy 7410, teacher contracts. This is required if the board requires consecutive years of service. Adds a new second paragraph consistent with the new state law that establishes, for the purposes of determining a teacher's years of employment by the board in this section, a year is at least 120 workdays performed as a teacher in a full-time permanent position. Provides that if a teacher did not work 120 workdays in a year, the year will not be deemed to constitute a year of employment unless otherwise required by the law. Provides that the teacher's failure to reach 120 workdays in a year because he or she was on approved legally entitled leave is not considered a break in continuity of employment. Provides that suspension is not considered approved or legally entitled leave. And modifies the link to the contract options to require that a teacher have at least 3 consecutive years. Policy 9300 is a district requested policy change, naming of facilities. This change is for creating a process for naming new buildings and to comply with policy 1100. There's also a cross-reference to policy 1100 added to that one. On policy 1600, 2010, and 6305, these are only minor changes to those governing principles. Adds a reference, board and superintendent relations. Adds that the superintendent must report all information required to be reported by the board to the board. And safety and student transportation updates a web link.
Okay, thank you for reviewing this for us. Board members, we're going to go through each one of these policies and your opportunity to ask comments or questions, and then we'll make a decision if we keep it on consent or move it to an action. So anybody have comments on 4240, child abuse and related threats to child safety?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I do.
Go ahead.
I guess thank you to staff and to our attorney for answering my questions and making a couple updates. And the update was really just bulleting that first section, the introduction, because I emailed them. I said I read it 3 times last night, and it was just so confusing. And I think the bullets help to just make a list of the things to do. This question is probably for Mr. Shaw. When people rent our facilities, and I think my question about the one renting agency was just an example, but overall in a broader sense, people renting our facilities need to follow our policies, such as no smoking on campus, no drugs on campus, no weapons, those sorts of things. So I'm guessing those renters are also subject to this policy as far as reporting if they become aware of a situation where there is child abuse.
Well, they'd be subject to reporting under the statutes, actually.
Okay.
Statutes say any person. And this is just designed not to add anything to the statutes, but it's just to remind our employees and contractors and volunteers that they are subject to that reporting statute. Those other people would be subject to it as well, though we don't say so specifically in the policy, I don't think.
But by the fact that they're policies of the district,
Yes.
if they're using our facilities, they're bound to the policies as well.
Well, they're bound to the policies, but you have to look at the policy then to see if they're covered. If the policy says employees, contractors, and volunteers, then they might say the policy doesn't apply to them, which I think is probably true. But the statute applies to them. The reporting requirement applies to them by virtue of the state statute.
Okay. I just feel like we have so many groups who have children. The purpose of them using our facility is because it's something involved with children and that they shouldn't be exempt. But as long as the statute covers that, then they are responsible for monitoring whatever they're doing in our schools.
That's correct. I think the distinction right now is that employees, contractors, and volunteers are doing work for us. And so we wanted to remind them specifically that when they do work for us, they have to follow these requirements. It's not that we don't want renters to not report either, but they are doing their own thing rather than working for us. So that's why they're treated differently under the statute. But the law says basically anybody in this room who has reason to suspect child abuse has to report it. That's independent of whether it's in our policy or not.
Okay, thank you. And I'm good with this on consent since my
Okay, Mr.
questions were
Harrison's got
answered.
his hand up.
Ms. Reimer, this really might be a personnel question for Ms. Jones, but this policy is very wide-ranging, so my general question is, how is it going to impact training or retraining for all of our 4,000 staff, or how is that going to be phased in or worked out, or can you give us a quick rundown of how this is going to impact, say, summer training in
So as you
June,
all-
July, and August to be ready to be in compliance?
So as you all know, we have a Safe Schools platform, and we actually worked with Safe Schools when this Senate bill came out earlier, and they wrote a module that's specific to North Carolina general statute for us. So we now actually have three modules in there that will meet the 2-hour requirement, and that's in addition to what the Student Services Department already does for training. So they do live face-to-face training, and then we'll also do these as modules and include the policy in there along with kind of a step-by-step fact sheet that we were able to get from Tharrington Smith out of Raleigh. They put together a fact sheet, and then we'll have our reporting requirements, just additional steps on that.
Okay, everybody get their questions answered? Keep it on consent or
Consent.
consent? Okay, 6420, contracts with the board. Comments, questions? Consent?
Consent.
Okay. 7240, drug-free and alcohol-free workplace. Comments, questions? All right, consent. Teacher contract 7410.
So, Mr.
Ms.
Chairman.
Furtenbaugh.
Yeah. I know this is a new statute for the 120 work days, but I'm concerned about, is it in conflict in any way with FMLA provisions that said you're guaranteed your job if you're out so many weeks or whatever.
Can you read
Is-
the appropriate section that you got the question on?
If you, let's see, it is on page 2 at the top in the red font. And does this now affect that teacher? So it can affect what kind of contract they're given. It doesn't affect their consecutive years of service because they could still have 2 consecutive years that are maintained or whatever. But does it now also affect their state retirement plan? As in they won't be given a year of service?
I don't know the answer to that. You know that on retirement?
So service credit and contract are 2 different things. So if
Okay.
it can't, so this policy is specifically dealing with the consecutive years of service. And so, for example, if I've worked, we have a 1-year contract, then you can eligible for a 2-year contract. Now we're moving into where we're eligible for 4-year contracts. And if in the course of that I've done the 1 year and now I've done my 2 years, and then I end up going out on a parental leave of absence without pay. Well, that 1 year, if it's a parental leave of absence without pay, that's not going to count because I've not worked any. But if I've gone out on FMLA or if I'm on approved military leave that falls within those requirements, then it will count. And those are just kind of the basic examples I can give you without going into all the different
'Cause
benefits.
the part I'm struggling with is teachers can accumulate their sick days. And then if they have surgery or have a baby or whatever, they're okay. They have days to cover their time off, but yet this seemed to be in conflict with, it's like the state giveth and the state taketh away.
Yeah, it's not, but
There's always been a 120-day
It has.
requirement. It used to come up for probationary teachers. Person had to have 4 years and 3 years of teaching. And then the issue became, well, what if somebody taught half a year? Is that counted as going toward their 3 or 4 years? And the answer was no. They had to have 120 days in or it didn't count. But they didn't lose. So that's considered to be performance-based.
right.
You have to do the work to get credit for that. So if you don't teach 3 years, what if somebody has a 3-year, is hired, then goes out for 3 years on medical leave? We don't say they've completed 3 years of teaching and are now eligible for a contract.
So
They
basically,
just didn't do the work, so it's performance-based. But because that's an approved leave of absence, they won't be penalized, they won't be sent back and have to start all over again. So this is a Solomon-like decision, kind of splits the baby. They don't lose their seniority they've gained, but they don't add to it when they didn't work.
we don't make them come back and start all over again.
So part of the question that I sent you guys all yesterday or last night was because we now have the flexibility with student days, the 1,000 hours or 185 days, or whatever the numbers are. What if we have a couple snow days? We say, hey, wait, we've got enough minutes accumulated of seat time.
We don't do that for teachers. We can't do, they have to make up the time. So we make sure that the teachers get their time in, and inclement weather does not impact them at all.
Okay, so they'll still have a work day which will be
Yes.
counted as
Yes, ma'am.
being present.
Yes, ma'am. And as
Okay.
Mr. Shaw said, the 120 days, it's kind of been there, right? We've been honoring that and doing that anyway. It's just the state has said, we're going to put this in writing to capture this now because of this whole consecutive contract and this cumulative thing, to make sure we've got that written and clarified.
Yeah. Is there going to be some, I guess, special communication to staff so that they understand this?
So it really hasn't changed the way we do business, and it's not going to change the way we do business. Now, the policy will be put out there, but it's on an individual basis, because a parental leave of absence is treated differently than, say, an FMLA leave of absence, right? Because this is FMLA, it's 12 weeks, it's approved, and most of that's paid, but some of it may be unpaid. They could be using voluntary shared leave. There's so many variables in it that to try to give all the different scenarios
it just was bothersome to me to see it as a major change. It may have been there, but now it's in big red font here.
Just trying to, well, to be in black font. We're just trying to clarify. We're just trying to clarify.
Change.
The state is asking us to clarify it in policy.
So the state suggested this wording?
I'm sorry?
The state suggested this wording, or
Yes.
School Board Association?
The School Board Association did
Yeah,
based
that's
on
fine.
state
I just think that's
statute.
important to
Yeah.
communicate
Oh, no, it's not
to
suggested, it's required.
maybe flag it to staff to make sure you understand the differences. So.
Ms. Furtenbaugh, when you mentioned FMLA, there's actually an interesting parallel. To be eligible for FMLA, a person has to have actually worked 1,250 hours the previous year. And if a person is sick for a full year, they did not work that year, they do not get FMLA. So they just didn't put in the time. So that's somewhat
There's
similar to this.
So many variables with that, but certainly, you know, we'll answer questions as it comes up for individuals.
Basically, I do not see a violation of
It's-
FMLA or military leave statutes.
We just always have to be guarded and make sure we're aware of those situations.
Okay, I'm okay with this being on consent, by the way, if everybody else is.
Appreciate your concern for our teachers. Consent, everybody? All right, 9,300 naming facilities. Are we okay with that on consent? Okay, the three here with minor technical changes, 1,600 governing principals, professional development, 2010 board and superintendent relations, and 6305 safety and student transportation services. Are we okay with those as consent?
Yes.
Okay, we'll move all those to consent agenda for next week. Moving on to the next item is 4.03, policy revisions for approval on second reading. And we have, what, 5 of those?
Yes, sir. No, we have had no one contact us about any of these policies, and no questions.
So they've been out there on the website, nobody's
Yes, sir.
come back. Board, do we have any further comments or concerns on any of these policies? Okay, on consent. Okay, and we did say we would start our public hearing at 7. Obviously, we got another agenda item to go through as well. Plus, I'd like to take at least a 10-minute recess as we get situated. Do we want to move on to 4.04, or do we want to take a recess and handle that?
Just knock it out.
Knock it out? Okay, 4.04, amendment to MOU Joint Use Facility Agreement with Cabarrus County Schools, Cabarrus County Convention and Visitors Bureau, and Cabarrus County.
Hi, and good evening once again. The Joint Facilities Use Memorandum of Understanding has been a long-standing interlocal cooperation agreement authorized under NC state statute. The amendments included with the current draft for the Joint Use Facilities MOU before you are a result of the Cabarrus County Visitors Bureau's investment of a large amount of funds into the purchase and installation of synthetic turf fields at Cox Mill High School and J.M. Robinson High School. In addition, there will be a phase 2 of that project which will impact West Cabarrus High School. Representatives from the county, the Visitors Bureau, and Cabarrus County Schools have met and worked with the county's lawyer to agree upon the amendments that you see before you. The MOU is concurrently being reviewed for approval by each entity. So as it travels through our board process, it is also traveling through their board processes. The amendment is available for you to review further, but some of the highlights include the following. So Cabarrus County Schools maintains the first right of refusal, meaning that we schedule first, they schedule second. There will be an annual summer meeting of district, county, and visitor bureau representatives to plan and schedule for the entire year before them. And then for all of the CCV events, there will be a pre-event meeting to ensure that all the materials are on hand for the event. And at this time, there's only one CCVB event scheduled, but they hope to attract more events to the area to help our local economy. This would indeed renew the MOU for 10 years, and I ask you to approve this item for consent for next week.
Okay, well, we'll start with comments on my right, or left, I guess, with Ms. Blackwell, yeah. Mr. Harrison, Ms. Furtenbaugh?
Of course, I didn't think about this until something you just said, or I would have emailed last night. If we have local sports groups want to do camps or something at one of these turf fields, and the Visitors Bureau then signs, and we say okay because we have no reservation for it, but the Visitors Bureau then signs an agreement for a a multi-weekend or week-long event or something, are we then asked to cancel because it was their money, really?
I think I'm following your question. So if they already have something scheduled, or if there's nothing scheduled, a local group schedules something on the
Yeah.
field, then do they get booted off if the CCVB schedules
Right.
something? No.
Okay, so they're
So
already
why
under
that year-
contract
that-
with us.
That planning a year in advance
Okay.
hopefully avoids that.
Okay, I could just see additional interest from local sports camps
Yeah.
and whatnot because of the fields.
Yeah, we agree. We
Sure.
agree. So we'll work through that through the facilities use form. And in fact, CCVB will actually be filling out that facility use form in most circumstances because they're usually working with a third party on that to schedule.
And that third party, as it says in here, will pay the normal fees to use
Yeah,
the
they pay
property.
fees. They're responsible for damages. They're responsible for all the liabilities, insurance coverage, and all those things. So that's all included in that facilities use fee.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Shoemaker,
I have no comments.
Ms. Carpenter, Ms. Crimson.
All right, thank you very much.
I think I'd like to see it in action since it is an agreement. Give the public an opportunity to read it and comment on it next week. So we'll add that to the action agenda for next week.
That's great. Thank you.
That brings us to the end of our regular agenda here. I'd like to take a 10-minute recess as we get prepared for our public hearing and take a stretch break. Is that okay with everybody?
So it's 7:10, 7:12?
So it's 7:12, around there. Welcome back to our Monday, February 3rd, Cabarrus County Schools Board of Education work session and public hearing. We are now going to move on to the public hearing section of this meeting. And before we do that, we wanted to talk, we had our, announcement said we'd have 25 speakers, potentially 25 speakers, and it went above that because we were trying to, your time is valuable, trying to keep it within an hour and a half to 2 hours. I think we have 29 total speakers signed up. Board, are we okay with hearing all 29? All right. We want to put any limitations on that?
How many are groups? Or is it
It does not say.
okay.
Okay. So I think we should probably be able to get it done in an hour and a half. Again, if you don't have to use all your time, certainly you have 3 minutes for individuals and it's 5 minutes for groups. Is that correct? And Mr. Vasilis over here will be holding up a sign and it'll have a number on it. And does everybody know their number? Yes? Everybody knows their number? So he'll call your number. You'll go out in the hallway and then he'll file you in one at a time. There, when you come to the podium, there's a microphone there with a red mic. That's the active mic. That's the one that's being recorded. Just announce your name and go ahead and give us your presentation. And again, I want to thank you for being involved and active and sharing your input as we go through this, trying to make a good decision or best decision possible on how we're going to relieve some overcrowding at Cox Mill Elementary School. So with that, board, do we want to, I need a motion to open the public.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, we are now, our public hearing is now open. So Mr. Vasilis, our first speaker.
Hello again. As I've mentioned in my emails,
You want to announce your name real quick?
this is Michael Guile, for those that don't know. As we've mentioned in our emails, we want to share some thoughts tonight regarding the only option on the table, which is option 2, as well as some other potential options that have been discussed at the previous meetings. First, what we're not going to do tonight is waste time talking about the various buses making left turns, right turns, which back road leads to what neighborhood, and which entrance is 100 yards closer to the school. We know you guys work with the transportation group, and they're pretty good at getting our kids to school safely every day, no matter which school it is. Also, we're not here to throw our friends and neighbors that are wearing blue with green signs under the bus tonight. because we're here for the same thing. We all want our kids to stay at the same school and continue in the community that we've built over the years. What we do want to discuss is that option 2 is not going to be a long-term viable solution for Cox Mill due to the incomplete residential growth in the area, assuming that all the county planning data is correct and your data is correct regarding 1 student for every 2 homes in our area. Option number 2 will only buy Cox Mill a year or 2 at best, and then one of us would be sitting right back here again doing the same thing. If you proceed to move all the smaller neighborhoods via option 2 right now, by the time the new neighborhoods are complete, you'll be faced with a more difficult decision, which is deciding which of the 4 or 5 big neighborhoods you're going to have to move next, when your only option is to take one of them that has 200 plus kids each. So what we're asking you is to consider different options. One, which we know you're not in favor of, is to cap enrollment now. It's an option that was held over our heads a year ago, but one that doesn't relocate any of the current Cox Mill families. 2, move a single large neighborhood now and leave some flexibility for yourselves later on. And I say this half jokingly, I think we'd all be okay if you moved Allen Mills, because nobody's from that neighborhood in this room tonight that can follow me outside. But finally, the one that I think I'd like you to consider, if you don't do either, is take us both. Take Winding Walk and Skybrook and the Mandarin program and move them all to Odell. That way we can all stay together.
Thank you very much.
And build what we have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 2. Just let us know your name, please.
Yeah. Good evening. I'm Jennifer Warner. I sincerely appreciate the time that you all have invested in the realignment process, and I realize that you have really been charged with finding a solution to an absolutely impossible problem at this time. I'm the parent of 2 children at Cox Mill Elementary, and I live in the Skybrook neighborhood, and I'm here tonight to oppose option 2. Realignment has been a frustrating process for many of us in the room tonight. For the past 2 years, we've been in a constant state of wondering where our children will be attending school next year. And that's led to a constant feeling of being unsettled. We thought we had closure to the process in April, and you can imagine our surprise in finding out that that was not the case. When this process started, there was an initial charge to find a data-driven solution that would work for a decade. For 2 years, we've watched incomplete and flawed data be used to drive decisions. Sadly, the plan that was approved did not even see implementation before adjustments were proposed, because the numbers on which those decisions were made did not align with the reality of growth in our area. Much of the discussion surrounding the readjustment of the original plan is focused on the immediate concern over the Cox Mill area. However, there is extensive growth approved in the Odell area as well, and soon all 3 schools will be over capacity. Making decisions to move small neighborhoods now without a full understanding of what the real numbers will look like isn't going to solve this problem, and it puts the families in these areas in a constant state of wondering, when will we be moved again? I want to be clear that I understand the impacts of overcrowding on schools and the stress that this causes to the wonderful teachers and staff that work with our children. I also want you to understand that I'm advocating to stay at Cox Mill because every school in our area will be overcrowded no matter what decisions are made. None of us created the overdevelopment problem, but we are all paying for it now. Shuffling students at this point is a shell game, and that doesn't create a long-term solution. When the realignment plan was voted on in April to allow Skybrook to stay at Cox Mill, we trusted your word and your vote. Please remember that young children and their families are very much impacted by the decisions that you're making. If option 2 is approved, my kindergartner will be in her 4th school by the time she gets to 6th grade, and we will have never changed addresses. I ask that you please consider that moving Skybrook at this time really does not create a solution to the long-term problems that we're facing right now. I thank you for your careful consideration of this, and I truly appreciate the time that you've invested in the process.
Thank you very much. Speaker number 3. And if you could state your name too.
My name is Jessica Baumgardner, and I'm a resident of Whiting Walk. I strongly support option number 2 as it is in its current form without any addendums. This vote should be made with logic, existing data, and with complete transparency. Planning blocks 77 and 465 have decreased in enrollment numbers and will continue to decrease. We are one such family. As of June, when my youngest child promotes from Cox Mill Elementary to Harris Road, I will have 2 children in Harris Road Elementary. The planning blocks that are currently in an option 2 have started their generational turnovers, so their neighborhood numbers will increase. As the immediate neighborhoods surrounding Cox Mill, planning block number 82, continues to increase, it's important to keep planning blocks such as Winding Walk, 77 and 465, because we will continue to decrease, and that will help to balance enrollment numbers. We believe that Harris Road creates a natural boundary with the east side staying at Cox Mill. The natural boundary is supported by the Clark Creek Greenway, part of the Cox Mill School Loop, which includes connecting it to planning block 77 in Phase 2 and Cox Mill Elementary in Phase 3, with estimated construction in 2023, which is only 3 years away. The Clark Creek Greenway is only 3 phases. It ends on the east side of Harris Road. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you very much. Speaker number 4. And if you could state your name for us, please.
Hi, Liz Mazzoni. First of all, I want to thank everybody for just giving us the opportunity to speak to you. I really do appreciate that because I know there's a lot that goes into these. I am a resident of Winding Walk. I have 3 boys right now that are in Cox Mill Elementary. 2 will age out, but I will have 1 that still has a few years left. After reviewing all the options, it does seem that option 2 seems to be the best fit to help Cox Mill right now. We can talk about transportation. That's great. Everybody knows that we can make a right turn out of Cox Mill, go down Cox Mill Road, go down Christenberry, come through the back of Highland Creek, down Clark Creek to Millstream, or from Millstream to Clark Creek, and then enter into Winding Walk on a right-hand turn, Rippling Stream Drive. Bus 207 does that on a daily basis right now, so we do see that. I know that there have been concerns with left-hand turns and stoplights, and I'm not exactly sure where the Board of Transportation lays there, but I'll leave that up to you guys. These are just kind of, our thoughts as a community. Option 2 also meets the criteria of creating the natural boundaries that the Realignment Committee was tasked with in 2018. The natural boundaries being Harris Road and Poplar Tent. And as Jessica previously stated, the Clark Creek Greenway project is going to kind of close that loop and start construction in 2023. So in Phase 2, that planning block 77, which is part of Winding Walk, will connect to the Clark Creek Greenway. That is the natural boundary. In Phase 3, that will connect to Cox Mill Elementary, completing the project. Option 2 also meets the criteria of maintaining contiguous school zones. I know it's messy, but historically, I know that this has been a goal of the boards, is to shrink the communities surrounding the school. Winding Walk is on that side of the school that would be shrunken in, and is that a long-term fix? I don't know, but right now, that would be in line with your historical decisions to look at contiguous school zones. And that would go for Lantana, Highland Creek, and Winding Walk. We're all in those zones. That again is supported by the natural boundaries that Harris Road and Poplar Tent create. And those are just my reasons why I strongly support option 2 with no addendums. Thank you very much. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you for those comments. Speaker number 5. And you can tell us your name, please.
Good evening. My name is Bobby Jo Lazarus. I'm a parent in Skybrook. I want to start by thanking you for truly listening. There's been a lot of feedback in prior hearings and emails I appreciate the position that you are all in. Obviously, there's a ton of passion behind this decision, which I think speaks to how incredible Cox Mill is. I do think it's important to say that for us and our family, our passion doesn't mean that we think Odell is not as incredible, but we have concerns around logistics and long-term impacts with development that's coming. We are a Mandarin parent family, our Mandarin program family. We have 2 kids in 5th and 2nd grade. If you follow the program at all, you know the investment that all of our 5th graders have made in this program being successful long-term. When we received our seat in Mandarin, we also received a seat in STEM. We chose Mandarin because of transportation concerns. We couldn't logistically get to the STEM program without having access to the bus. Both of our kids are tutored 2 days a week in ELA and Mandarin. Cox Mill currently does not allow tutoring on school grounds. So if we lose our bus, we can't use the after-school program and continue tutoring for our children, which as a 2-parent working household puts us in a pinch of what we're going to do. Now, obviously, this doesn't change whether I'm in Skybrook or whether I'm in Winding Walk or any other neighborhood impacted. It's all the same impact we're going to have. So my ask is that you consider the data of how many Mandarin kids would be impacted by the decision when you decide which neighborhoods need to move. We asked for that data prior to this meeting so we could provide it to you. Unfortunately, the school did not provide us that data, so all I can give you is my gut, which tells me that there are more kids in current option 2 that are in the Mandarin program and would be in the program next year that would be impacted. The reality is if Skybrook gets moved out of Cox Mill, it's a high possibility that we will have to leave the Mandarin program because we logistically can't make it work. And I know I'm not the only family with that concern in talking to other families. So my ask of you is get the data, make sure it's good data, and consider that and the long-term impact that this could have on the Mandarin program being successful. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Speaker number 6.
Good evening, board, and thank you for listening to all of our questions and our concerns. I know this has been a really long process for you. It's been a really long process for us. My name is Hayden Conley, and I am a proud mom to 4 boys. That's right, 4 boys, and 3 of which are elementary school. I know, people are like, what? And 3 of which are elementary age. So this is super applicable to me and my family. I'm also a resident of Skybrook. Tonight, along with all of the other residents that are here, I'm asking you to consider keeping Skybrook at Cox Mill Elementary School. The Skybrook neighborhood is very unique in that it is actually in 2 counties. You know this. And I like to think that our small section of Skybrook is a little community unto itself. There's over 1,000 homes in Skybrook, but only 32% of them are in Cabarrus County. So that makes this huge neighborhood into about 100 elementary age students. It's pretty isolated within our own neighborhood because of this county split. And I like to think of Cabarrus as our own, the Cabarrus as our own little community. The fact that our kids all go to one school from kindergarten to 5th grade helps solidify that community feel. If we are moved to Odell, you'll be taking a very small, tight-knit bond and breaking it into 2. No longer will our children be able to see each other on the bus or wave in the hallways and help older siblings or younger siblings on the bus and see them at recess. Moving Skybrook to Odell will create a crack in our strong sense of community. Keeping Skybrook at Cox Mill Elementary will help keep our Cabarrus community strong. Thank you.
Can you restate your name?
Hayden Conley.
Thank you very much. Okay, speaker number 7.
Hello, my name is Kelly Balsara. I do live in Skybrook. We just moved there. So I'm kind of new to all of this. Before we moved in, I did do a lot of research and looking at the different school districts, looked all over. This was my number 1 choice. We moved there. I have 2 small boys. By moving them next year would be their 3rd move. And I understand the overcrowding. It's going to continue. I just hope that we make the right choice. I would like to see Skybrook stay in Cox Mill for the sheer fact that we are a small pocket and we are a very close community. I know I've only been living there a month, but the community feel, the teachers, everything at the school, we've really enjoyed it so much. So I'd like to ask you to take into consideration all of these things that everybody is saying, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker number 8.
Hi, my name is Shannon Cook, and I just want to thank all of you guys so much for all of your time and effort you've been putting into this realignment effort. As a Skybrook parent, I'm here to ask you to please consider leaving Skybrook at Cox Mill Elementary and vote against option 2. By moving one large neighborhood instead of 5 to 6 small neighborhoods, there's less of an impact to students, and it makes bus transportation more efficient. Plus, by moving one large neighborhood, it provides more overall relief from the overcrowding at Cox Mill Elementary. Please consider this option for our children, and thank you again so much for your time.
That was quick, thank you. Speaker number 9.
Good evening. My name is Renaud Warren, and I'm a resident of Skybrook, a 6-month resident of Skybrook. So I thank you very much for giving me your time here tonight. I'm a little bit incredulous that I'm here tonight, because when we moved a few months ago, we tried to do our homework and look at what the rezoning situation and look at different schools. We looked at multiple places, and we settled on Cox Mill because we had a strong, the community left us a strong impression. I understand, I saw firsthand that you're having a problem. It's overcrowded. I do not deny this, and I think I can talk for all the parents in this room. They are very concerned. All of us are. So the point that I'm trying to make is that a decision was reached about that problem less than a year ago, 10 months ago. I don't quite know exactly when, but I believe that decision was being taken on solid numbers, on demographic data, on multiple board members such as this one. It's difficult to believe that I'm here tonight because that has changed. I personally don't understand what has changed, and based on the amount of development that is going on around, it's hard to see how this is a viable solution, whether it's option 2, 3, or 4, for all that matters. There's going to be a problem in the future. Maybe considering a longer-term solution. Odell built a school. Why can't we build a school? If this population is exploding, there's certainly an argument to be made to build an extension to Cox Mill if that's necessary. I am just here to say that I understand the problem. I want my kids to continue at Cox Mill. I love the school. I have a 1st and a 4th grader. So you can imagine what this kind of realignment will do to us. And maybe to take the time to think of bigger, grander solutions that will solve everyone's problem. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your input. Speaker number 10.
Hi, good evening. My name is Judith Dunai. I am a mother of 2 boys at Skybrook, and I would like to express my concern with the realignment process. I want to thank you first and foremost for being here and giving us the opportunity to express our concerns. You just heard my husband. We have been looking for schools. I did my research looking at many elementary schools, and I found Cox Mill to be the best match for my children. We've looked at multiple housing options and felt that after your decision in April of 2019 to keep Skybrook with Cox Mill, we would be safe to move there, that we would have at least 2 to 4 years for our children to go to Cox Mill. I am shocked, we are all shocked that this has come up in question for realignment again. I would like to express my concerns as our mother here about their kids having to move, about the uncertainty of where they're going to go to school next year, about the importance of keeping the community intact. It is wonderful that my kids can actually walk to their friends from school, that they can build strong communities, that they work for teams, putting time and effort in, and to be able to stay with those teams. As others have mentioned, moving Skybrook and many other small communities is just delaying a long-term decision, because this problem will come up again, causing angst, uncertainty for a lot of parents. We all want our kids to have a great education and to be in a community where they feel that they belong. Thank you so much for listening and for your time.
Thank you very much. Speaker number 11.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, thank you for your time. My name is Brian Hofert. I'm a longtime resident of the Skybrook neighborhood, and I have a first grader in the Mandarin program, along with a preschooler who will be starting, hopefully in the Mandarin program, starting in 2021. I will be brief as I'm a man of few words. I just wanted to reiterate what many of the other folks before me have stated. We walked out of here last April believing that we were, quote unquote, safe, and that we were not going to have to face this issue again for a couple of years at least. Needless to say, in the last month or so, when I learned that we were once again going to have to defend our position at Cox Mill Elementary School, I was frustrated and defeated. And while I understand that things need to be reevaluated due to the overcrowding, I feel that there are other ways that this can be accomplished. There are a lot of new neighborhoods coming online in the next couple of years that are going to continue to flood our schools, and then we are going to be right back in the same boat again, trying to figure out how to relieve Odell's overcrowding. My ask of this board tonight is that you leave Skybrook and Cox Mill Elementary, and not because we don't like Odell or feel like our kids will not get just as good of an education there, but because, as I stated last year, we are vested in the Cox Mill community. We volunteer, we sweat, we bleed for this school, and we were there the day this school opened its doors. And now it feels as if we're being evicted. Meanwhile, you have new neighborhoods coming in with no dog in the fight, and they're going to get to go to the school that we have poured our hearts into and we're being forced out of. Unfortunately, I didn't get to say this last year as it came up after we had an opportunity to speak, but the reason our numbers as a neighborhood look so high is because of the Skybrook apartments at the front of our community, which are not a part of Skybrook, although they use our name. We don't even share a bus with them. I've waited for the bus in front of this complex before, and I've seen how they fill an entire school bus just one stop in front of the complex. I believe much of the overcrowding concerns that you are seeing at Cox Mill Elementary could be resolved if you look further into this. I feel it is worth a deeper dive at the very least. I believe that there is more at stake than just that of natural boundaries, as previously stated. Also, perhaps looking at the new neighborhoods that are still being built or about to be built around us would be the answer to this overcrowding issue. Please don't move a neighborhood and community that has been so long established and so much invested in the school. I ask that you please leave Skybrook at Cox Mill Elementary. Thank you for your time.
And thank you. Speaker number 12.
Good evening. I'm Jean Wainish. I have a kindergartner and a second grader at Cox Mill Elementary, both of them in the Mandarin program. I want to start by thanking all of you. We've been here before. We're back again. You are in a no-win situation. I've realized that. You can listen to every neighbor talk about how we're vested, talk about the great schools. The fear I have and the concern I have that I'd like to raise to you is just, I don't think you yet have all the data. Everybody talks about what the decision that was made last year, and we made a decision not having all the data. I think we're making the next decision potentially without all the data. I think we will, if you move Skybrook, it's a Band-Aid on something much bigger. I don't know that it's really going to solve the problem for very long, and we'll be back again. I know freezing is not a option that people like, but it is one that you raised. And I wonder if that would give you the time to really make the analysis, right? To understand what it means for Cox Mill, what it's going to mean for Odell. Again, I think we're going to have a lot of potential movement. We're going to be back here again revisiting for different reasons because I don't think we have all the answers. I think you're doing the best you can, and I think the intention is good. I think the schools are fine. My children would stay with the Mandarin program where it is. We love the program. But I think we need to hold, or I ask that you look at options to hold until we're fully informed of what the true numbers are. I watch the kids' numbers go up, the new houses go up, the kids pop out, and I don't think we're going to cover it. The other thing that I would say is I've become aware of more and more families in the Mandarin program who have become, I'll say, geographically displaced, right? As these rezonings happen, you have people who started in the program who are no longer attached to the program by the busing. I'd ask that you think about looking at the history of the program and considering a temporary option to bus the kids, whoever you move, whether it's us in Winding Walk, which, as much as I hate to say it, is probably a more logical long-term solution, but whoever you move, you're separating these kids, and you're separating them from a sense of community to be able to be with other children in their neighborhood and other children at their school. I love the bus. I put my kids on the bus every day and they think it's great. It is a way to build that sense of community and to build their maturity that they need, that they evolve through those early years. So I just ask the board, while you're looking at your options, to consider what can be done to not rush to a decision. I understand we have to do something now, but I think moving Skybrook will not help us, not for the long term. So again, thank you all for all your time. I appreciate it.
Appreciate your comments. Number 13.
Hi, this is Rajesh Kamiseti. I am representing.
Say your name one more time.
Rajesh Kamiseti.
Thank you.
And I'm coming from the Edison Square, which is in the planning zone 468. And I have two daughters going to Cox Mill Elementary, twins, and they just started last calendar year. My basic concern is Edison Square is the one, if not the only, affordable community around Cox Mill Elementary school assigned areas, and if at all, if you could please retain it, at least defer the decision of disconnecting. It has only 24 children going to the school. That will help a lot of folks who made decisions either to buy or rent for now and planning to buy at some point. So please keep Edison Square in the Cox Mill Elementary School for now, if possible. That's all.
Thank you very much. Speaker number 14.
My name is John Lettingham. I was told to speak slow. So I actually live in planning block 83, which we call Beach Bluff neighborhood, which currently we have a whopping 7 students that are at Cox Mill. Our neighborhood was built in the 70s and the early 80s. There are currently 32 homes there. There are 3 abandoned or empty lots that will not perk, so therefore they will not have construction on them for the foreseeable future. Our neighborhood literally touches Cox Mill High School, which is right across the street from Cox Mill Elementary School. I drove it this morning. I am 1.3 miles to Cox Mill Elementary School. If our children are relocated, then it will be 2.7 miles passing the entrance of Cox Mill Road off of Poplar Tent to get to the primary school. To get to the secondary school, it'll be 3.9 miles. While that's not a lot of mileage, we have one problem. Poplar Tent Road is 2 lanes. I pass International School on the way to Odell Primary, and I was stopped for 4 minutes this morning. The other problem we have is in the evenings, traffic backs up from Cannon Crossroads, which is Harris Road and Eastfield, all the way back to the intersection of Cox Mill Road. So if our children were going to be doing after-school programs at either school, it would now take us 25 minutes to get to those schools to pick up our kids, best case scenario, in traffic. Again, our neighborhood was built in the 70s and 80s. We have 7 students that are now at Cox Mill. Next year we will have 5. So one of the other issues that I'd like to mention is our planning block butts up against 68, which is actually the neighborhood that includes Altacrest, which is off of Odell School Road. That's not in consideration. However, the bus that picks those kids up picks up our kids, and they're still going to have to go past our neighborhood in order to pick up those kids coming into the school. I know that it's an issue, and you guys have to deal and make decisions that are best for everybody. Everybody wants their kids where they're at. I do have a petition that I had signed from our neighborhood, and basically 75% of the people responded in 2 hours that I sent out the petition. So I would ask that we be grandfathered in, mainly because of the distance and location from our neighborhood.
Send the petition to Ms. Abbott. The petition, you can give that to Ms. Abbott.
Sure.
Thank you for your comments. Speaker number 15.
Good evening, board member. This is Hemant Baswapatan. I stay at Edison Square Townhomes.
Say your name again.
Hemant Baswapatan.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm here to vote against option number 2. I stay at Edison Square Townhomes, which is majorly occupied by seniors. There are very few kids who are going to Cox Mill School from that community. So what I want to bring in attention to the board member is, if these small kids are moved out of Cox Mill, it does not impact. If we move kids from Skybrook apartment, it definitely impacts. It will definitely release some space in the Cox Mill School. Ours is a well-established community. We have some new communities or some new phases coming up in new subdivisions. So if the Board of Education takes a good consideration in aligning schools before the new phases are released, it makes more sense rather than moving kids after the community is well established. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Speaker number 16.
Hi, this is Sagar Melam. I'm from Edison Square Townhomes, and I really thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak, and also really appreciate your time in hearing our voices. And when I first planned to buy a townhome or single family home, like I'm doing my research, and couple of my friends' kids, they were studying in Cox Mill School, and he referred me like probably if you can move to Edison Square Townhomes, that will come under Cox Mill and also a bit affordable for us. And so in 2018, I invested my money, and couple of my friends also came to that townhome for the sole reason of being that school being from Cox Mill. And now when I heard that Cox Mill will be moving out, Edison Square will be moving out of Cox Mill, then I'll be in constant turmoil. Even the Odell school, that's also fastly being filled. And what if in the next year probably we'll be moving out of Odell? That thought itself is it'll add constant pressure on my mind. And now I work in Bank of America. I spend 1 hour a day just to make sure that I give my kid a better education. And I'm not saying that Odell is bad or something, but I prefer Cox Mill. And also since it's getting overcrowded, and me and my wife, when we think about moving out of Cox Mill and Odell, that constant turmoil, it's a bit tough on us. So just want to hear out my concerns. Thank you for giving me this time.
Thank you for sharing your perspective. Do we have speaker 17? Did they were not here. All right, speaker 18.
Good evening. My name is Gary Eldridge, and I'm a resident of Winding Walk. I have 2 children in this community, We are neighbors with those here. We are friends. We are, in many sense, a lot of us family. So this is not an easy burden that you bear. This is a burden that you have to make a decision based on the best data that you have available today. And as of today, that data supports, in my opinion, option 2. I speak tonight in support of option 2 for the student realignment plan addressing the overcrowding of Cox Mill Elementary, Odell Elementary, and primary schools. Our school system's been unfortunately impacted by large residential development over the past several years. And as we are all aware, additional communities are currently under development and more are in planning phases. Option 2 provides the proper balance of total school and classroom attendance as it brings the class and school population in an approximate average of each other. Neither of the alternative rezoning options promote the same distribution or balance. Furthermore, option 2 is directly designed to support the anticipated growth of our neighboring and upcoming communities while taking into consideration the reduction of class size on teachers. Option 2 promotes a geographical inclusion, not a segregation, which is what happens if you decide to remove Winding Walk from school zone. It is the only subdivision that will be isolated out of all the remaining school districts, all the remaining neighborhoods within that school district. As transportation and safety is also a concern for our children, option 2 is the only option which addresses both the logical and natural boundaries, but also provides a level of insurance to each of us as parents. In closing, the data provided directly supports the approval of option 2, as it addresses the best interests of all parties to support expansion, establish a balanced school size, and establish the highest level of safety in transporting our children to and from our schools. In closing, I want to thank the board for the opportunity to speak tonight, and I don't envy the decision you have to make. It is difficult, but we do trust that you will make the right one based on the data and the evidence you have. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker number 19.
Good evening. My name is Mike Mazzoni. I'm a resident of Winding Walk and father of 3 boys. I have I think a unique appreciation for this. Both of my parents are teachers. I've been through realignment processes many times as a student, and it's never an easy decision. No matter what, people are going to be affected. So I think it's certainly important to look at whatever data we can. It's never perfect, especially in a community that's growing so rapidly. I feel like anytime you take data, it's going to be bad the next day. But we take whatever data we can to make the most logical decisions. And I'm here in support of option 2. I feel like it meets the majority of the criteria that's used to determine the logical and rational fits for realignment. When we look at the criteria, it seems that option 2 does the best job of meeting the criteria while mitigating any negative impact now and in the near future by not creating any gaps or non-contiguous zones. Certainly option 2 meets the criteria for optimizing bus efficiencies and the use of natural boundaries. You've heard it already, but we know buses can make all right turns, and it's an extremely safe route to get to these neighborhoods. So that is really not an issue whatsoever. Option 2 certainly creates the natural boundaries with Harris Road and Poplar Tent. We've looked at the map. Clearly, these natural boundaries put us in a very close proximity to Cox Mill. This also helps maintain the contiguous school zones. You know, historically, that's been one of the central goals of the board when we have to do this. And this keeps the school lines consistent with shrinking the attendance areas around the school. So both the planning block 77 and 465 that make up Winding Walk, as well as Highland Creek and Lantana, qualify for the contiguous zoning. And by utilizing this methodology, it would not create an island or a donut inside of the school lines. So I strongly support option 2 as it most accurately addresses the realignment criteria laid out. Thank you very much for your time and listening for us tonight.
Thank you for your comments. Speaker number 20.
Good evening. My name is Felix Orwella. I'm in the Winding Walk community. I have 2 children attending school there. And I'm here to support option 2, as it meets much of the criteria that is used to determine the best fits for realignment. As you've already heard from all of our other speakers, it affects all of our families very much. So with this option, we feel that it's the best natural boundaries created, whereby west of Harris Road will be zoned for Odell, and east of Harris Road will be zoned for Cox Mill. These natural boundaries include neighborhoods that share an island with Cox Mill Elementary, and there will be no primary roads and major intersections that would require crossing. And in addition, there will be an ease to safety for bus transportation. Specifically, that planning blocks 77 and 465 are able to utilize all right turns going to Cox Mill Elementary via Harris Road, Poplar Tent, and Cox Mill Road, and then utilizing all right turns traveling from Cox Mill Elementary to those planning blocks via Cox Mill Road, Kristenberry, Millstream, Clark Creek, and/or Ellenwood. When exiting Cox Mill Elementary, there are signs that when you approach the road that you can't make a left turn. These are not permitted during school travel hours, and I believe that the buses should adhere to those restrictions as well, as a matter of safety. I would also like to point out that the planning block 77 and 465 has seen a consistent decline in the elementary student registration as a result of the natural aging of the neighborhood. This decline will likely continue from years to come. So given all this information and putting all emotions aside, I'm strongly in favor of fully supporting option 2 in the original form with no addendum. Thank you very much for your time and all of your hard work and all of the difficultness that this has put you through.
Thank you for your comments. Speaker 21.
Good evening, Superintendent, school board members. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to come here and present my point of view. I'm a parent of a Cox Mill student.
Can you
and we live in Winding Walk.
state your name for us?
Soma Nag.
Thank you.
I'm a parent of a Cox Mill student. We live in Winding Walk. We've been there for the last 6 years. My son started out as a kindergartner in Cox Mill and he's now a 4th grader. So we have a lot vested in the Cox Mill school system. Okay? And I'm strongly in favor of option 2, as evident on this map. Okay? So, and I thank the Cabarrus County School Board and Superintendent and appreciate the fact that they're strongly recommending option 2 for the realignment. So option 2 fully supports the criteria of contiguous zones and prevents the creation of a donut hole with Winding Walk as an isolated island in the middle of Skybrook, Highland Creek, Lantana, Edison Square, and Christianberry, which are all part of the Cox Mill family. And in fact, in this context, I'd like to point out that communities such as Lantana, Edison Square, and Skybrook Apartments only came up within the last 2 or 3 years. Okay, whereas Winding Walk's been around for a while, to the point that was made earlier about newer communities. Regardless, not to throw anybody on the bus, that's not my intent here. The point that I'm making about contiguous zones is apparent in that map for option 2, which was also presented at the realignment committee meetings last year. Option 2 also supports the criteria of using major roads and natural boundaries wherever feasible to define attendance zones. And in this context, it is apparent that Harris Road creates a natural boundary with the east side staying at Cox Mill and the west side going to Odell. And this is also supported by the Clark Creek Greenway, which was alluded to earlier in this meeting. So I'm not going to go over those details. Even though there's such strong evidence in support of option 2, I believe there are some lingering concerns about buses having to take a left turn into Winding Walk. So as a parent who lives at the intersection of Winding Walk and Rippling, at the intersection of Rippling Stream Drive and Ellenwood Road, which is part of Winding Walk, I see buses making a right turn into Winding Walk all the time, both in the mornings and the afternoons. So that same route could effectively be used for buses from Cox Mill Elementary. Besides, the more important point, or the key point, is that buses that currently go to Cox Mill Elementary from Winding Walk always are able to make a right turn onto Harris, regardless of which Winding Walk entrance they use, the main entrance or the back entrance. Okay? So as is evident from this description, the issue of buses making a left turn in and out of Winding Walk does not arise and is a moot point. In summary, I therefore believe that all the information logically supports option 2, and it should be cleared without any further modification. And the other fact is that children are punted from one school to another. It has a huge impact on their lives and causes a lot of turmoil and has a negative impact. Thank you for your time and for allowing me to share my viewpoint.
Thank you for your comments. Speaker number 22.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Eugene Chang. I am from Winding Walk, and I have 2 sons that are in the Mandarin program. And I'm here to support, to give my support for option 2, as it's the most logical. and it fits all the top 3 criteria of the realignment project. So number 1, it reduces the overcrowding of Cox Mill. It also puts in a buffer for Cox Mill, where you're keeping in planning blocks that are projected to have reduction in enrollment. So my family is a perfect example. I have 2 sons. They're at Cox Mill right now. One will be graduating this year and moving to Harris Road. And so in this case, my family will be reducing Cox Mill's count by 1. It also keeps, number 2, it keeps contiguous schools on the zones. So all the neighborhoods that are in option 2 are physically connected. Winding Walk is physically connected to Highland Creek. And we actually share a road together as well. And then number 3, it maximizes busing efficiency. So subdivisions are sharing buses together. So as Highland Creek is connected to Winding Walk, there is actually one bus that connects that serves both subdivisions. There's actually a physical road that connects with each other in a subdivision. So in conclusion, I want to thank the board for creating a great solution with option 2, and thank you for all the hard work that you do, and really appreciate how you manage our schools and keep everyone educated and everything. So thank you so much.
Thank you for your comments. Speaker number 23.
Hi, I'm Kelly Becker, and I want to start off by saying I've listened to a lot of concerns about splitting up communities, or I have to bus my child to Mandarin. Those kind of concerns, or I bought my home to be in this school, they apply to all of us in this room, right? They don't apply to the new communities, the new buildings, but everybody in here would be affected by those things. So just to start off with that, and then I'll go into the reasons I support option 2. I'm a member of the Cabarrus County community. I appreciate you allowing this opportunity for the public to speak. I think after looking at the school board slides from the last meeting, it's clear that Cox Mill needs immediate attention. It showed it will be way overcrowded next year, so something needs to be done. I think option 2, as presented in the public listing for this forum, without further amendment, is a clear solution that works. It's based on historical precedent and sound and logical reasoning. Option 2 balances school facilities. It utilizes Boger, which is currently underutilized. It balances the capacities of Cox Mill Elementary and the average of Odell Primary and Secondary within 2%. It keeps a declining planning block, such as Winding Walk in Cox Mill, to help offset the building that is happening right on Cox Mill. In addition to balancing school facilities, it maximizes busing efficiency. As buses from planning blocks and Winding Walk share buses with the community behind us, it helps the buses be efficient and maximize the transportation. It allows buses to travel to the closest areas. It promotes bus safety. As it's been mentioned, Winding Walk can be turned into using all right turns. There are 3 routes from Cox Mill to go to Winding Walk. 2 of the routes avoid the major roads of Harris and Poplarton, so you can completely avoid those. If Winding Walk were moved to Odell, you would force us on to those roads, creating more traffic congestion and possibly safety concerns. In addition to balancing school facility utilization, maximizing busing efficiency and safety, option 2 allows for a clear feeder pattern, contiguous zones using major roads and natural boundaries. Option 2 further uses proximity and the historical precedent of closing in the circle around the overcrowded school. So again, thank you for the opportunity to be here and present these facts, this multitude of logical reasons that option 2 without amendments is a clear, logical, obvious choice that will work to ensure the health, safety, and quality of education for our county's children. I hope that you remember these reasons next week when you vote.
Thank you for your thoughts. Speaker number 24.
Good evening. My name is Matt Parrott. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to address you tonight. I'm here this evening to offer my support of the proposed option 2 without addendum for the realignment of Cox Mill Elementary School. As a resident of Winding Walk, I've quietly observed the changing proposals regarding realignment not only to Cox Mill Elementary, but Cabarrus County Schools as a whole for the better part of 2 years. The reality of the current situation is that you have some difficult, potentially long-lasting decisions before you as a board. In one regard, these are good problems in that it shows that we live in a very desirable location. Schools play a significant role in this trend continuing. In a county such as ours, change is inevitable. I've listened to viewpoints from various board members, and it seems that the general consensus is that this is not the last time you will be faced with realignment in the coming years. It is my belief that there are many things option 2 in its current form has in its favor. One is natural boundary lines that can help facilitate this decision. Harris Road is a natural boundary line. Option number 2 uses this boundary line in consideration of realignment. By deviating from this line, inevitably, island neighborhoods will be created, which in my opinion leads to a precedent of alienation that will be hard to overcome when looking at future realignments. There has been significant opposition to option 2 in some communities, while there has been significant support in others. What I ask you as a board is to understand that this is an emotional topic for families. However, for the long-term growth and benefit of the students, the community as a whole, and the neighborhoods, please base your decision on what makes sense both geographically and logistically now and in the future, not emotion. Facts that cannot be denied based on data that this board has referenced is that the numbers of students assigned to Cox Mill from Winding Walk is on the decrease, while the numbers from Skybrook is on the increase. Secondly, it cannot be denied that geographically, Winding Walk and Skybrook are the same distance from Odell, while Winding Walk is geographically closer to Cox Mill. Inevitably, there is going to continue to be growth at the 3 schools. However, currently there is far less capacity for growth at Cox Mill by deviating from the proposed option 2 in its current form. I have also heard board members speak to what-ifs in regards to future realignment and making decisions based on projected future growth. The bottom line is that this has all been brought back to the forefront because the projected scenarios that were taken into account in past studies didn't turn out as planned. With that being said, the current situation does not lend itself to the perfect results. I trust that you'll make the right decision for what's best for the future growth of our community. And my family doesn't care which school we go to. We're fortunate to have 2 very good options in front of us. But I think this is more about the future growth and the realignments that you're going to be faced with. So thank you for your time.
Thanks for sharing your thoughts. Speaker number 25.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Vinod Amudala Bhaskar. My daughter currently goes to Cox Mill Elementary. I live in Skybrook Apartments. So I am not in favor of option 2, obviously. So basically because my daughter gets impacted by this rezoning of Cox Mill Elementary, like several other kids. Through this rezoning, there are many kids just like my daughter who are smart and bright kids who wants to go to the same school, wants to actually have a bright future, participate in the school programs. Many of them spoke about like Mandarin and other premier programs. So she would like to get the opportunity to do that, interact with familiar teachers and go to school with the same friends. So I recently moved from Texas. I don't have any kind of opinion about either one of them, but like my thing is, since I live in Skybrook apartments and the community, I would like to actually vote against option 2. And also the area around Cox Mill is being a lot of people are relocating just like me and many others who are moving to Concord Mills. So I see a lot of new homes being built, a lot of people moving into this area. I feel that rezoning is maybe a temporary solution, and it might be W or Odell Elementary also seem to be overcrowded. So I feel that either option 1 or option 2, there gonna be some kind of rezoning, or Odell might actually get overcrowded and we have to rezone again. So that's my thought personally. I trust in the board to take additional steps to resolve this issue and solve the concerns of many other parents who have shown up to voice their concerns. So I would like that board makes a long-term solution that helps kids and parents as well, as the rezoning always affects like kids and parents. Thank you again for the opportunity for me to speak here. Have a good night.
Thank you for your comments. Speaker number 26.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak. My name's Elisa Everett, and I have two first graders at Cox Mill. One is in the management program, and one is not. And as of right now, I am in support of option 2. However, I have to say that I am in agreement with Paisley's dad, who lives in Skybrook, and I live in Winding Walk. If there is the opportunity to cap things, I would appreciate going that route, because I feel you have two communities that are vested in the school and obviously who want to stay. And then you have new developments that are coming in who are not vested yet. So I do support option 2. However, I feel if you can make any arrangements to make both communities stay who really want to be there, that's my vote. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Speaker 27.
Good evening, board. My name is Kevin Center. Thank you for the opportunity to hear all neighborhoods concerning this realignment. It is appreciated. As a former teacher and school principal, I've seen the impact that student-to-student relationships can have, both positive and both negative. I tend to be a person who looks at the positive things regarding decisions, impacts, philosophies. I know that moving students from one school to the next is not taken lightly, and it's a big decision for all involved. I thank you for considering options before making a final decision. I speak tonight not in favor of option 2 and ask the school board to take into consideration option that keeps Skybrook at Cox Mill Elementary. There's one reason that I'm most passionate about, and it is related to student success, as all educators should be most passionate. After all, our schools have two goals each day. Number 1 is to keep our students safe, and number 2, to ensure that they're successful. Students who feel connected to a school are more likely to succeed. They have better school attendance, better grades, test scores, and stay in school longer. Building these relationships require perspective that embrace positive attitudes and beliefs, culture, linguistic competence, and understanding of the needs and experiences of students, and understanding of the school environment. A few years ago, I did a study using data from the Delaware Positive Behavior Support Project. The project discovered that students with positive peer relationships tend to have higher self-esteem, greater satisfaction towards school, greater academic achievement, and greater engagement in school. Option 2 increases the chance that many of the students moving to Odell would arrive with little to no positive student-to-student relationships. Option 2 moves students from at least 5 smaller neighborhoods. These students are coming to a new school with fewer personal relationships than students that would come from a much larger neighborhood. Students coming from a larger neighborhood would have a less difficult transition and could build upon their student-to-student relationships. By keeping our Skybrook scholars at Cox Mill, you are allowing these students to continue with many student-to-student relationships that they have built, as opposed to having them start all over at a new school with few already built relationships. These students will more than likely continue on a positive trajectory. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing with us. Speaker number 28.
Am I supposed to wait for it to do that? Okay. Hi. I'm Allison Furman. I'm a resident of Winding Walk. I have 2 boys, first grade, and the other one will be kindergarten in the fall. So, of course, his brother is very excited for them to be together. And I think the good news is no matter what, they'll be together, at least for a little bit. And I want to say it's super cool that we get to come up here and voice our opinions. I work with all kinds of people across the globe, and this is a really unique thing about the U.S., so awesome. And thanks for hearing us. I'm super nervous. Okay. I am here in let's say, I agree with option 2 for now. I don't know if it addresses the long-term issue that we have. I don't know if everyone has the data from the City Planning and Zoning Board, but my friend Kelly Becker sent it to me, who is also a speaker, and there are 2,700 new schools, or new homes, that are already approved. Already approved. 2,700. There is no way any of these local schools can absorb this. And I don't believe that the study done 2 years ago knew that there would be 2,700 new schools. And I don't know how there was bad data in that report, because dang, we spent a lot of money on it, so if we didn't know how to get the right data in, whoa, like, can we get a refund? But on a serious note, we really probably need a new study, 2,700 new homes. This is going to ruin all of our property values. It's going to ruin the communities. We're all going to move because we're not going to be able to keep up with it. We all love Cox Mill. It's because it's a 9. Nobody said that yet. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but it's a 9 and the others aren't. And that's really sad, because I have friends who are in Odell, and I have friends who are in this proposal, and I would never want to say, I wish your child had less of an opportunity. We all love Cox Mill. It's a 9. Let's get all the others to a 9. Like, I want to talk about that. I don't know how we can talk about that. I would love to help talk about that. I would like to help talk about these 2,700 homes. I made copies for all of you, by the way, in case you don't have it. But, I mean, long term, you can't just swap in neighborhoods in and out last minute. It's going to create donuts and islands, and that's weird. Like, I'm sorry, the inevitable line is the natural boundaries. And there was a teacher who I thought was super funny. She posted on Facebook. She's like, y'all are probably all getting rezoned, so you can just stop, like, worrying about it. That might be super true. But the, like, lines of Harris and Poplar Tent, I mean, that's very natural. It's just, it's what it is, and I hate to say that for all the people that I love that are impacted by that. Like, that's a bummer. But we have a problem. And honestly, the only ask I have of you right now is, please take a decision and stick to it, because we do have a problem. And I know that's hard, and I know there's a lot of emotions in it, but we need to stick to it. So please make a decision, and then let's redo the zoning. And I will help you make sure the data's right. I know how, but I'll help you. Okay, that's it.
Enjoyed your comments. Please give the map to.
Thank you.
So there was 29, but we don't have the 29 right now. So that would be the last speaker. For those that still wanted to have an input to the board, please email us. Email addresses are on the website. With that, I could take a motion to end our public hearing.
I'll make a motion we close the hearing.
So we have a motion to close the public hearing and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, with that, we've closed the public hearing, and we did have our get my agenda set. We were going to add the one item. What do we call that? 4.05? 5.04. Sorry, mixing that up. So that is a just. Oh, we'll let them clear out. That's fine. Okay, good evening. We are back from our recess. So we have one more item that was on our agenda, which is 5.04, discussion of the redistricting. I know we had a lot of comments this evening, so a lot to digest. Still more that comes in, but we did want to have a discussion amongst the board here on our perspective. I think Ms. Carolyn Carpenter wanted to start that discussion, so I'm going to hand it over to you, Carolyn.
Okay, well, you know I'm never one that's shy, but I really, when we had the discussion at the first meeting, well, originally I had asked this board to delay their discussion 1 week. I had asked for that originally, and the reason that I had asked for that was because 2 of our members were not going to be here, and that request was denied. And I think that if we had delayed that maybe some of this would have could have been worked out, and I'm a little disappointed because there were three other proposals that were put forth, but only one proposal was put out to the public, and one option was only put out to the public, and there were three other options that were put out, and to me, that showed non-transparency. And I feel that all three of those options should have been put out to the public, and I'm very disappointed, and I just wanted to make that.
Was that not a vote of this board?
Well, in that vote, and I voted no, and that's the reason I voted no.
But,
and
but
to
we're,
me,
we're,
that,
we're a board, so it's the majority.
yeah, but that I think the public should be made aware of that, and it was not. And there were three options out there, and so I want to make sure that. And a lot of people come up and said option two, but other three options were not publicized. And so if you did not have cable TV and do not have that option, they didn't know those options were out there. And so I just feel like that transparency was not there because it was not publicized in the paper. And I just feel like that does not show true transparency. And I think that all options should have been put in the paper, that all options should have been there. And I just do not feel like that's fair. And that all options should have been put there. And so, and I really feel like that was a negligence on our board.
I think if my memory serves correctly, is the only option that was vetted was option two. The other two came up on for discussion that very day.
Well,
so
but
in order
if
to meet
we
a
had
timeline,
if all board members would have been here, which I requested, that we delay the meeting, so all of us would be here, we would have been able to do everything that night. But no, it was pushed for us to be here.
I understand your frustration, but we did review everything that was discussed at that meeting. You were not
and
here
because
the
I
following
said so we could all
following
do it that night. But no, it was pushed that we kept saying, we have to do it, we have to do it. But we could have discussed all those options and all of them would have been on the table. And then Ms. Furtenbaugh said, oh no, we've got to have an option so we can have a hearing. And it was pushed, just like we're pushed to make a decision.
So Carolyn, what was the reason that we're trying to do this, sir?
Do what?
What is the reason that we're trying to move this
well,
forward?
We're saying we're being pushed into a situation. This is very important to the children of this county. That's what we're supposed to be doing for the welfare of the children. And this is a very important decision. And I don't think we should be pushed into something.
Isn't the timeline, there's a kindergarten registration that's coming up here in about a month.
But again.
And those students deserve to know what school they're going to go to?
Well, that's true, but you shouldn't be pushed into something. This is too important of a decision. I don't think anybody, and the parents deserve it, and the children deserve it. I don't think it's a decision you should push.
Okay. Mr. Harris.
If I may, negligence has a certain meaning, and I'd strongly advise that phrases like that be used less loosely. And I know I take high offense at the very idea of negligence, and I'll bet the staff does as well.
Who's next? Ms. Cribley.
So I think it's very evident why there are so many issues with any of these options, and especially with option number 2, because the numbers don't do anything but place a Band-Aid there, and I am not comfortable with that. I know it's a huge impact on, many of the kids and the different subdivisions, but I appreciate the lady that spoke that brought this, because this is what I've been looking at all weekend, and I spent several hours over the weekend trying to look at the different options, because there was a 3 and a 4. And actually, what has come out of this tonight is the fact that option 2 is not a solution. It would be a fix for a very, very short time. We don't even really know at this point in time what that is. We didn't know what it was last year. It turned out to be a problem as we enrolled this year. I'm not going to sit here and say that I would favor something to do. You know, what is most frustrating and what people don't really take a hard look at is elementary kids are in school for 6 years, K through 5. Middle school is 3 and high school is 4. So it is less likely in a redistricting time frame that you're going to be redistricted more than once in middle school or high school. But it's highly likely that you're going to get redistricted once, twice, maybe more than that if we don't do a good job and if projections are not what they turn out to be. So that makes it very difficult. Not that that's any one person's fault. It's not our fault. It's not, you know, any one person's fault. It's not the staff's. But it is what it is. But it doesn't mean that we can't do a better job when we make that final decision. Therefore, this weekend, I know all the board members have got a copy, and I sent it to the staff to look at what I called an option 5. It's just reconfiguring option number 4. And I would like to ask the staff to go ahead and to do some due diligence on that option to give us some ideas of how that would pan out. It really does put, and I know this is not going to be popular, but it's either do it now or do it later is how I see it. And it really does place Skybrook and all of the planning blocks that we've been discussing, along with Winding Walk and North Chase, and all of those planning blocks to go to Odell. And that to me is the only solution, because you're either going to go now or more than likely, because we won't have a viable option, anything else but that, to do it later on. And I certainly don't want to have to come back here and have that discussion again next year. If we had done this last year, it still wouldn't have been enough. We'd have been right back here, maybe not this year, but it certainly would have been next year. So it's to me, it's just it's a tough decision, but I can't be okay with an option that's only going to temporarily be a fix that may not be effective. So with that being said, you know, I just want to list a couple of reasons, and I'm not sure how we'll handle it from here with the report coming back to us maybe next week, or, you know, discussing another public
Can you read off the planning blocks you're talking about?
Sure. So along with option number 4, and the hard part of this is going to be is
so since option number 4 is not out there, you have to include every planning block.
Right. So it's going to be option 4, and then to add planning block 72, 468, 69, 71, and 70. That would be taken from Cox Mill to Odell, which is a student count of approximately 207, and I'm not positive all these numbers are actually accurate, but they're close. Then, in addition to that, I want to take from Odell to go to Boger, because that is one of the largest issues that I have with number 2, is it really does cripple Odell in any type of growth plan, and that's an issue. So to add planning block 43, 50, 55, 53, 29, and 54. I know there's some issues with some movement that took place while I was not on the board in the last several years. I don't know how that's going to pan out. I don't know what that really looks like, of where they've moved, how many times they've moved. We just need to look at it. But those from Odell to Boger. So when you look at those, that brings Cox Mill's capacity level down to about 843, and like I said, plus or minus. It's a wash almost with Odell Primary and Elementary, I'm thinking, because you're taking out 207, but you're also removing 194 from the Odell. And then that makes Boger right at 885. That makes all of those schools in the 800s. That we can live with. There are no, or maybe not, just a couple mobiles at Odell Elementary. They've got plenty of room there. We know that that's some of the bigger area of build-outs that's getting ready to take place. So, you know, that's my comfort zone. I just want to put it out there. I would like for that option to be truly tried and true. The one issue that I really have is I'm not sure about the benefits of, or if it's viable, I'm not even sure, of moving that Mandarin program. I heard that, and I think we discussed that a little bit. Somebody asked that the last time. I don't know that we've ever gotten any results from that information being requested. But that might be one of the options as well, if we are going to move all those planning blocks to Odell, that the Mandarin program be moved as well. I'm not even sure about that one. We just need to know. But also, And this piece of it, and I'm not really sure, like I said, because being off the board, I'm not sure where it went. But in taking those kids out of Odell and moving them to Boger, that puts those kids at Northwest Middle, which is a great option because that would relieve Harris Road Middle. So there's a lot of benefit that would come out of this supposed option number 5, and I would certainly like to put it out there and make sure that we take a look at it.
Okay, who's next?
Can Odell, what's the population at Northwest Middle? Could they handle that?
Okay, there's going to be a lot of questions based on that. I want to make sure every board member had an opportunity to speak. Mr. Shoemaker, you prepared to say anything?
Well, and I understand, and I didn't necessarily disagree with Ms. Grimsley's recommendation on the planning block 77-465, along with the whole Skybrook and Lantana and those being redistricted over to Odell. I don't have a problem with that. I would like to take planning block 83, which has 7 going down to 5, and Beach Bluff, and just put that back where it belonged at Cox Mill. I think it was an arbitrary decision on our part to do that anyway. And planning block 464 is just farmland, but I don't know what that'll be. That's where the international school is? Okay, then we could you could do what you want with that one. But what I do have a problem with is in a couple of the offerings that you had, Ms. Grimsley, one is called the farms in planning block 43, and I just did a map on that to see how far. It's 8.8 miles to Charles E. Boger right here on Google Maps, and that's from the farthest point over there. Actually, it's from Hat Creek Lane, and then I did another one from closer in from another one in a different planning block, which would be planning block 29, and it's 7.7 miles. So we're really running the children a long way, and I really don't see the logic in moving those kids from the farm all the way to Boger. It's just too far. We did it for a while. We did it only because we had another school that was, Odell. We were trying to get Odell built, so that was in the planning, and we satellite zoned them for a little period of time, and they dealt with it. And I just think it would not be in good faith to run those children 8.8 miles to Boger. It's a long way, when they could be going 3 miles to Odell. And so I would have problem with some of those districts that you offered up in your option up on the Boger side. And even though I understand what you're trying to do, I fully understand the numbers game. Believe me, I'm a data person. And so but then we come up with the whole middle school. I don't really have a problem with the students that go to Boger coming back to Harris Road. It's not the best solution, but in less than 3 years we'll have a new middle school, and then we're going to solve that problem and redo all of our districts on the middle school side. So we shouldn't jump the middle school gun right now. Plus, we didn't have it in this public hearing, so we'd have to have another public hearing and all that. I don't think we will. Just depends on if we go with option 5 or if we go with option 2. The thing is the district's changing rapidly. I think right now this decision that we make with option 2 will last us 3 to 4 years, and then we'll have a new middle school boundary. We can look at what we're doing with the middle schools, and in concert with that, we can look at what we're doing with the elementary schools and keep them all synchronized with each other. As far as building another school, an elementary school, we're working with the commissioners, and everything has been cash flow, as you know. Everything is cash flow, and right now, part of our cash flow is dealing with this new middle school, and then after that, we've got several in-town elementaries, and then we also have the new high school that we have to build for Northwest, which will open us up for the properties over there at where Boger is, which gives us some other options to build even bigger, possibly elementary school there, or look further out into the county. So I don't necessarily think right now we're in a position, and I don't want to put parents having to travel 7 to 8 miles to the school. That's just because they're not in rural areas. So
let me just answer back. So, I get it, and I wasn't real sure because I didn't have the ability to figure out what the mileage was from those, and I get it for some of those, and I would agree, and I know that's something we need to look at. But there is no way that option number 2 is going to bring us out 3 to 4 years. There is no way. Allen Mills is not even built out yet. Ansboro just got approved for 300. There's a couple more of those. There is no way with this option 2 sitting at 1040, capacity was what, 1,100 and something with mobiles, 900 and some with not mobiles usage, 1,160. There's no way we're going to make it for 2 years, much less 3 or 4. That's where I have the problem. I'm not sure exactly what the answer is going to be.
Let's get some feedback from the rest of the board. On this side, Ms. Furtenbaugh.
Thank you, Mr. Walter. First of all, I just wanted to clarify something that Mrs. Carpenter said. Our meetings are on YouTube, and if you go to the the district website at www.cabarrus.k12.nc.us, go to the Board of Education page. On the left-hand side, there is a link to look at. So you don't need cable TV. You can go watch them on YouTube right there. I wanted to echo Mr. Shoemaker's opinion of keeping Beach Bluff at Cox Mill Elementary School. One, due to the small number of students, and also due to the proximity. And you may recall that I brought that up before. They are literally like attached to the property for the high school, and they're right around the corner. We have that nice gap with the planning block that does not have a lot of students in it, or doesn't have any students currently in it, because there's a charter school on the property. So we don't expect on the kind of the west side of Cox Mill Road that there would be housing development there any more than that's already occurring. I do like some of the parts of Mrs. Grimsley's plan. I think we need to see the total numbers, because Odell Primary cannot handle much more, in part because of class size requirements for the K2. We always have to remember that they have a different situation there. And also they don't have a lot of extra land. So that land, for those who have been around the community a while, that land was a gift from a developer, but we kind of got the short end of the straw on that one. It wasn't a very big piece of property. I really favor waiting for the middle school alignment to do any further changes. I think we can wait and ask staff this week to see what Mrs. Grimsley's plan numbers come out, but we have building coming from the east side of Boger as well, and the north of Boger, so I think there's a bit of a wash. We're really focused on what new developments are on the far west side of the county right now, but there's other developments. So having been through many years of redistricting, I think by my estimate it was about 24 or so over the years. There are two principles or basics that we typically follow. One is closing the district in around the school from a geographic standpoint, trying not to have the school on an edge of a district. And the second part is leaving some growth seats. But in contrast to your opinion, or your option 5, Mrs. Grimsley, I see the growth seats keeping some at Odell and keeping some at Boger as being very important, because we don't know where. There's so much open land in Odell's and Boger's districts. We're starting to tighten up around Cox Mill as far as what else can be built, even though we know there's a lot planned. But we are tightening up around that area. So I think I would rather see, from the option 2 perspective, the kind of the equitable distribution, and also to get these middle schools aligned with the high schools. In the perfect world, and we've tried this to get to this point over the years, but every time you add a school, it gets messed up. You've got about 3 elementary schools that feed 1 middle school that feed 1 high school. That's the perfect world. But then you change the size of the elementary schools and it's no longer perfect. Or you add a new high school and all of a sudden things are out of line. But we think we're going to get back to more of that long-term goal with this new middle school. And that will affect, when you're thinking about students moving across the county, that will certainly take some students from Harris Road, possibly some from Northwest Middle, And there's just a lot yet to be seen. So in that 2 to 3 year period, so we're looking at 2022 to open, is that right, for the middle school? So in less than 2 years, we'll be at it again with redistricting. So y'all excited about that? Yeah. So I guess I look at the numbers of option 2, and I think we can make it for those 2 years. And that will also potentially leave some seats at Odell if we have to shift anything else. So I'm still going to go, like I said, I want to see the numbers off of Mrs. Grimsley's proposed number 5, but I'm still strongly leaning for all the reasons or things that I've learned through studying this to option 2. So thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Harrison?
I'm also leaning toward option 2 because the staff has crunched these numbers every which way this side of Sunday, and we are in the same position we were in last year, if not slightly more critical than we were at that time. I'll be delighted for the staff to do its due diligence on Ms. Grimsley's proposals. But it seems to me that the option 2 that is presented to us and has been several times over the recent months is well vetted, is transparent, and is the most sustainable approach we can offer. We do not have a crystal ball. We don't know what the economy is going to do, much less what municipalities and the county are going to allow for growth and development. We can only plan, realistically speaking, about 2 years out into the future, and other than that, we do not have any clue or idea what can be anticipated. And nobody can feasibly or realistically up here stand before you and say that we can make that prediction. Please don't believe that we could. We've got a great county, we've got great passionate parents, great communities. Plainly, y'all love your schools. Ain't that right? You do, and I admire you deeply and profoundly for that. But y'all, we've got a good problem to have because your area is so desirable. I come from someplace where I ain't going back. And I'm trying to admire your passion for your schools. But we got to work this out. And it's going to be painful all around. But please don't ask us to give any ironclad guarantees. Please, I beg you from the depths of my heart. We can't do it. People want to move into your neighborhoods. People want to sell the houses they have to move into other stages of their lives. That is a great problem to have. But it throws all the weight on the schools. I'm going to repeat myself for an umpteenth time. The municipalities and the county determine economic growth. They determine when and where and how and why developments spring up, expand or don't. And the school system, unfortunately, has to play catch up. We cannot get ahead of those other governmental arrangements because we'd be superseding their authority for economic development. It's just the way it is. Please bear with us. And you have tonight. I'm grateful for your tone, for your passion, for your conviction, but very strongly I appreciate how well considered every single one of your thoughts have been tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison. Ms. Blackwell.
Well, so I would also like to echo, I really think everybody up here has done an amazing job, and I think that we've all done our best to try and think this through. As a parent, I completely understand the unknown
of where is your child going to go the next year. It is difficult. However, my own personal thoughts on this, I also think that this it's how we present these things to our children when they have opportunities to move to new schools. And I think as parents, if we make it an exciting opportunity, a positive opportunity for them to go to a new school and make new friends, that these are things that they kind of pick up on from us. My children have had to change schools. And my 6th grader, who's at Concord Middle, will be going to Mount Pleasant Middle next year because of the redistricting we did last year. He's made friends at Concord Middle. I know that he's going to have some changes with this new, journey in his life. But we've tried to make this be something that's positive and exciting for him, that he'll meet new friends, make new teachers. There'll be other programs there that he doesn't necessarily have opportunities to participate in at Concord Middle School right now. So, as difficult as a decision this is for the board, I also think that there's certain opportunities as parents that we can take in order to make these decisions seem more of a positive opportunity for our children. That's just my own personal opinion. So on that note, one of the things that I would like to say is, Holly, thank you so much for looking at this, because I think ultimately we would love to see all of the numbers be at an even number throughout all 3 of these schools. That would be the best of the scenarios. I do think that unfortunately, like you said, David, we don't have a crystal ball to know what kind of growth, what the economy is going to do even the next, we've got a huge election coming up this year. So who knows what the economy is going to be like in 2 years. So I think what we need to do, and I just want to say thank you to Lynn, because the one thing that I did ask her in our very first meeting about this was, show me something that makes sense. Show me a logical boundary that I can say, this is why we chose this. It makes sense. Geographically, it makes sense. Let me talk to the transportation staff, what's going to make sense for them, which we did have the opportunity to do that this past week. We met with the transportation staff to find out their thoughts on option 2 as well, and option 3. And option 4. So thank you, staff, for that and providing that opportunity for us as well. I would like to know what it would do, and I realize it's not a lot of kids at Beach Bluff, but is that going to affect the transportation piece of anything that we've discussed? Because I know that we've talked about not creating donuts and kind of islands out in the middle. So I just want to make sure that that's not going to be an issue, even though it's only 7 kids now, 5 kids next year. What is that going to do? And I also kind of made a note to myself about this whole creating a neighborhood environment. We don't want to break up the neighborhoods, and we certainly don't want the neighborhoods. And y'all did so awesome tonight. I mean, the conversation and the hearing that we had tonight was handled just absolutely beautifully. So thank you all for that very much. I was super nervous about what was going to happen tonight, honestly. So thank you for that. I do think that, our ultimate goal is to not create any kind of animosity between these neighborhoods. We don't want to do that. We just want to do what's the logical choice, what makes the most sense for the time that we are right now. I think we all know that we're probably going to have to revisit this in a couple of years. That's not... Nobody wants to have to do that, but realistically, our county is growing, and that area is growing faster than any area in this county. And to echo what you said, David, yes, that's awesome, because I love where I grew up, but I totally don't want to go back there either. So I think we do an amazing job with the school system that we have here. So I appreciate all of the interest from all of the parents, and your passion for your kids and the students in your neighborhood is amazing, and it's wonderful. So I applaud all of you for that very much. So like I said, I just really would like to get the information on Beach Bluff And if that's going to mess with the transportation for art. And that's it. Those are my comments. So thanks.
Thank you for those. Yeah, my brief comments. Again, I appreciate Ms. Grimsley taking the time and spending the effort to come up with alternatives. Especially, it does kind of share my concern because we did initially say we really needed to move 200 kids out of Cox Mill to make an impact. We wouldn't have to repeat this shortly, and these options don't quite hit that goal. So that's a concern. That is a concern. I'd love to be able to add seats tomorrow to Cox Mill, but apparently that's too expensive to do, and that's not going to happen. And then I really do feel for folks that have been invested in that school since its beginning, and to see people just move into the neighborhood just because they live closer, they're going to have to go to a different school. I don't think that's fair, but we can't do a satellite redistrict for those neighborhoods. But our issue here tonight is, we've got to do something. If we do nothing, there's no way we can. There's no room at the school to add more teachers, to add more students, if we don't do something. So we have to do something, and I don't know if we go with a different alternative. Do we have to have another public hearing, and how that delays things? So that's a little bit of a concern. That's a concern as well, unless we have a special meeting or something. And I think those are off the top of my head. Those are the things that I've been thinking about. But again, for the comments today, they were well thought out. You added value to our decisions, and that means a lot to me, because you all live there. We don't. That's important. So again, without anybody having anything else tonight, otherwise we will.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to request one more piece of information.
Yes.
When y'all are looking at this option 5, will you give me, I know this is one side of the county and y'all know that, but of course I deem from Mount Pleasant side, I would like to know what the greatest travel distance is for those kids. What's the furthest ride to Mount Pleasant? High school, middle school, I don't pick one. But what students up there, that's a long travel ride for that side of the county. So if we're on that side of the county, I want to know what we're doing up there. So just give me the greatest travel distance for those kids.
Yeah, I think
and maybe to Bethel as well, because I'm sure they've got some pretty long bus rides too.
I think it's important to note, Mrs. Grimsley, I agree, those are long routes, but without water and sewer, you don't have development. And so
you don't, but if we're talking about kids with long bus rides, it doesn't really matter the reason why. I just want to know what those travel
except
routes
that
are.
Parents choose to live in the more rural areas versus the
but they choose to
suburban
live on
areas.
That's just information. It's just information for you. That's fine. All right. Can I get a motion to adjourn? We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a second. All in favor of adjourning this meeting? Okay. With that, we are adjourned, and we will see you next week.